Chapter 501. What? Fengmu is gone? Mu Rongshuan was shocked. He was stunned when he heard Mu Xian's words. Uncle Mu, did you see where the young man who came back with me went? Mu Rongshuan called Uncle Mu over and asked. Uncle Mu shook his head. Young Master Rongshuan, this old servant doesn't know. How do you do things? Didn't I tell you not to neglect him? Mu Rongshuan was a little angry. Young Master, please forgive me, young Master. This old servant really didn't neglect that guest. I saw him yesterday evening, and he disappeared this afternoon. Uncle Mu bent down and anxiously explained. What happened? Why are you blaming Uncle Mu? Mu Tianhe saw Mu Rongshuan scolding Uncle Mu and walked over. He looked a little tired. It was clear that the Mu clan situation was getting worse and worse. Mu Rongshuan's face turned pale. He hesitated for a while before saying, Father, actually the young man I invited back that day not only saved us on the road, he also saved little Hao from Mu Santu. Mu Santu's cultivation was also crippled by that young man. What? You're saying that Feng Mu crippled Mu Santu's cultivation? Mu Tianhe was shocked. Mu Santu is at the nascent soul stage. Doesn't that mean Feng Mu is at the out-of-body stage? The Mu clan only had Mu Tianhe at the out-of-body stage. If they could keep Feng Mu, the Mu clan would have more confidence. Bastard, you clearly know. Why did you say you didn't know when I asked you that day? Mu Tianhe said angrily. Mu Rongshuan helplessly said, he told me not to tell anyone because he didn't want to cause trouble. Maybe Feng Mu was worried about angering the Sikong clan, so I didn't say anything. Bastard, how can you hide such an important matter from me? Mu Tianhe looked up and sighed. You still have a nerve to blame Uncle Mu? Uncle Mu has worked diligently for our Mu clan for so many years and has never made a mistake. But you, I thought you were an understanding person. I didn't expect you to be so muddle-headed. Mu Rongshuan's face turned red from Mu Tianhe's scolding. He was annoyed. These 2 days, he only cared about the Mu clan's lost businesses. He didn't even know when Feng Mu left. Master, it's my fault. Please don't blame young Master. Uncle Mu hurriedly said. Uncle Mu, this has nothing to do with you. Mu Tianhe let out a long sigh and looked at the sky. After a long time, he said, Perhaps the heavens really want my Mu clan to die. Now, I'm afraid that our Mu clan's time has come to an end. Forget it. Keeping Feng Mu will only harm him, Sai. Right at this time, Mu Mingda suddenly ran over in a hurry and said anxiously, Father, something bad has happened. Our Spirit Stone Bank is surrounded by a group of merchants. They're all asking us to take out all the Spirit Stones stored in the bank outside, but our Spirit Stones can no longer be turned over. We are bankrupt. What? Let's go. Let's go take a look. Mu Tianhe turned pale with fright. The Spirit Stone Bank was the most important business of the Mu family. Now, the Mu family needed money for many things. If their merchants no longer chose to believe them and converted all their Spirit Stones into cash, it would be a devastating blow to the Mu family, because the Mu clan could not take out so many Spirit Stones. Mu Tianhe brought his son and hurriedly rushed to the Spirit Stone Bank. At this moment, a large group of merchants had already gathered outside the bank. Most of these merchants were cultivator businesses. Originally, they had business dealings with the Mu clan and also stored their Spirit Stones in the Mu clan. But now that the Mu clan was in an economic crisis, they were worried that their Spirit Stones stored in the Mu clan bank would be lost, so they all came to ask for it. Mu clan, give us back our Spirit Stones. Yes, don't even think about taking our Spirit Stones. All the merchants were shouting. They blocked all the entrances and exits of the Spirit Stone Bank. The Spirit Stone Bank had already tightly closed the door. The Mu clan's patriarch is here. Someone shouted. Everyone turned around and looked at Mu Tianhe and the others. Mu clan's patriarch, does your Mu clan not plan to cash our Spirit Stones? A big man with a curly beard waved a receipt in his hand. It was the receipt for depositing and withdrawing Spirit Stones. Mu Tianhe said in a deep voice, Everyone, please don't be impatient. You all stored your Spirit Stones in our Mu clan because of your trust in our Mu clan. I, Mu Tianhe, will not take any of your Spirit Stones. Well, I only stored 10,000 Spirit Stones in your bank. Including the interest, it should be 10,500 spirit stones. I want to withdraw it now. Shouldn't you get it to us? The curly-beard big man said. Everyone rest assured, the spirit stones and silver that you stored in our Mu clan will not be lost. Our Mu clan guarantees our reputation when doing business. We will not take any of your things. It's just that something has happened to our Mu family recently. Give us a few more days, and we guarantee that you'll be able to take back everything that belongs to you. Mu Tianhe forced out a smile and bowed to everyone. Mu clan's patriarch, don't try to fool us. I'm afraid your Mu clan can't take out a single spirit stone, right? I heard that your Mu clan is completely finished. Win from an empty cave? Nonsense. We just encountered some difficulties temporarily. Mu Tianhe was strong and calm. In fact, he didn't even have the confidence to say this. The Mu clan was only an empty shell now. They didn't have any spirit stones to take out. Is that so? Then, can Mu clan's patriarch settle the debt of 1,500,000 spirit stones that you owe our Gu clan's medicine store? A discordant voice came from the crowd. When everyone heard this voice, they consciously opened up a path. An imposing middle-aged man walked out from the crowd. This middle-aged man was wearing a brocade robe, and his face was glowing. He was Gu Hongyi, the patriarch of the Gu clan, one of the 5 great clans of Clearwater City. He was a cultivator at the second firmament of out-of-body stage. When Mu Tianhe saw Gu Hongyi, his face sank. Patriarch Gu, didn't we agree to settle the debt next year? Gu Hongyi's interference at this time was obviously to add insult to injury. Gu Hongyi sneered. Master Mu, let's not beat around the bush. I'm afraid your Mu clan can't even take out 10,000 spirit stones now, right? I, Gu Hongyi, don't like to be a sucker. Everyone knows that your Mu clan is already an empty shell. Today, you can either return 1,500,000 spirit stones to our Gu clan, or you can mortgage the land of your spirit stone bank to our Gu clan. Mu Tianhe clenched his fists. His heart was filled with boundless anger, but he still forcibly suppressed it. He smiled in an almost fawning manner and said, Patriarch Gu, on account of the fact that your father and I are old friends, can you see if you can make an exception for us? I'll definitely think of a way to repay this debt, as long as you... Speaking of the fact that you and my father are old friends, I almost forgot one thing. Gu Hongyi interrupted Mu Tianhe's words and sneered. I remember that my father was engaged to you when you were a child, right? Yes, there is indeed such a matter. Mu Hao and your daughter Qiao Wei were engaged in marriage. For the sake of the two of them, can you postpone the matter of the debt? Mu Tianhe seemed to have grasped at the last straw of hope as he hurriedly said, Old man Mu, your Mu clan is finished. Do you still expect me to marry into your Mu clan and be a poor ghost? A cold girl walked out from behind Gu Hongyi and said without any trace of politeness. Gu Qiaowei was the same age as Mu Hao, but girls developed early. At this moment, her figure was already extremely curvy and her small face was also very likable. But at this moment, her beautiful alchemy revealed ridicule and arrogance. She did not have any respect for the out-of-body Mu Tianhe. Mu Tianhe's face flushed red. He was an elder, but he was insulted by a girl who was originally his granddaughter-in-law. He was filled with anger. If Gu Hongyi's cultivation was not higher than his, he would definitely teach this girl who did not know the immensity of heaven and earth a lesson. Qiao Wei, how can you say that about your future patriarch? Mu Rongshuan angrily said. What? You two poor ghosts wanting to marry over? Let me tell you, I'm here today to break off the engagement. Gu Qiaowei snorted. Break off the engagement. The Mu clan never thought that Gu Qiaowei would actually say such words at this time. Their Mu clan and Gu clan had always been on good terms. But this time, because of the Seacone clan's attack, the Gu clan did not help the Mu clan get through this difficult time. They actually chose to sprinkle salt on the Mu clan's wound. She's actually breaking off the engagement? Of course. With the current Mu clan, who would be willing to marry over? Who cares if she breaks off the engagement or not? Hurry up and return the spirit stones that she owes us. In front of so many people, Gu Qiaowei spoke of breaking off the engagement to the Mu clan. This was a naked ridicule and contempt for the Mu clan. However, many people felt that the Gu clan did not do anything wrong. This was because marriages between big clans were originally arranged. Once this marriage had no effect on the clan, it was pardonable to break off the engagement. However, Mu Hao, who had his engagement broken off, would not be able to raise his head in front of outsiders for the rest of his life. Mu Tian's face had already turned ashen. He said coldly, "Gu Hongyi, I hope that this is just your daughter talking nonsense. How can a marriage that has already been set be broken off?" Gu Hongyi raised his head and smiled slightly. "She's not talking nonsense. This is also my intention. As long as your Mu clan agrees to break off this engagement, then all the debts that your Mu clan owes these people will all be on my Gu clan's head. As for the medicinal herbs, we'll also write off the matter." Everyone's face was filled with joy. When they heard Gu Hongyi's words, they could not help but shout, "Hurry up and break off this engagement. This way we won't lose anything." "That's right. This matter will only benefit your Mu clan and will not harm you at all." This matter concerned everyone's interests. They all chose to stand on the side of the Gu clan, who was originally in the wrong. Everyone knew that the Gu clan did not do things kindly. At this time, adding insult to injury was the most disgusting thing. However, as long as they could get compensation, who cared who broke off the engagement? Mu Yu stood in the crowd. It was impossible for him not to know that such a big thing had happened to the Mu clan. He looked at Mu Tianhe and the others, feeling very confused. Mu Tianhe was indeed his biological grandfather. Now that the Mu clan had met with a disaster and was being humiliated in public, Mu Yu did not know how to face the person who had caused him to become an orphan. Did he really need to stand up for the Mu clan? Chapter 502. Mu family head. You should consider it carefully. Mortgage your bank to us and cancel this marriage. We will help your Mu family pay off these people's debts. From then on, our two families will have nothing to do with each other. Gu Hongyi sneered. With the Gu family's strength, it was easy to help the Mu family pay off their debts. They were here to brazenly snatch the Mu family's property. Mu family head, you should agree. The Gu family is already benevolent and righteous. Everyone agreed. That's right. We just want to get the money that belongs to us. A fatty said. Everyone in the Mu family had ashen faces. They looked at Gu Hongyi's smug expression with resentment. However, they were helpless because the Mu family was already at a dead end. Impossible. This marriage cannot be cancelled. Gu Hongyi, it was your father, Gu Renfei, who took the initiative to set this marriage. Your father is no longer in this world. If you do this, are you worthy of your father? Mu Tianhe asked with a trembling voice. Gu Hongyi's face turned red. If he really did this, he might be labeled as unfilial. However, with the Mu family's current situation, he was definitely not willing to push his daughter into the fire pit. He said coldly, "So I still hope that the Mu family can cancel the marriage. This way, both of us will have room to speak, right?" "No need." Mu Hao's young voice squeezed out from the crowd. He clenched his fist and walked in front of Gu Qiaowei. "There is nothing between the two of us. I have never acknowledged you as my wife because I don't like you at all. I don't like a barbaric girl like you who is disrespectful to her elders. Whoever marries you is unlucky. You don't deserve to be a member of my Mu family." Determination was written all over Mu Hao's childish face. He glanced at the Gu family members in disdain, then left without looking back. You dare to say that to me?" Gu Qiaowei stared blankly at Mu Hao's back. Her spoiled face was filled with disbelief. She angrily shouted and directly attacked Mu Hao. However, Mu Tianhe stood in front of Mu Hao and said, "Gu family head, my grandson doesn't like your daughter. There is no need for this marriage. You should take care of your own daughter. Today, my Mu family no longer has any engagement with your Gu family. Let me tell you, evildoers are doomed to destruction. Our Mu family will pay back the debt, even if we have to sell our ancestral home. Everyone need not worry. After 5 days, the money we owe everyone will definitely be in your account." Mu Tianhe glanced at Mu Hao, who was slowly disappearing into the crowd, his heart filled with grief. How could he not know that Mu Yu had a sense of responsibility for the family since he was very young? Furthermore, he greatly admired the missing big brother Mu Yu. He understood many principles and hoped to protect the Mu family. At such a young age, he shouldn't have become a sacrifice for the family's interests. However, the marriage of every descendant of the Mu family was arranged by him. For the sake of the Mu family's business, he had no choice but to do so. Xiao Hao. Mu Rongshuan caught up with his son and held back the tears in his eyes. Looking at his son who had been stubborn since he was a child, he could not speak. Father, Grandpa has always told us that we, the Mu family, have a backbone. We can't do things without a backbone. Did I do the right thing? Mu Hao raised his head and looked at his father. He had always wanted to grow up quickly because he knew that once he grew up, he would be able to help his father and grandfather solve their problems. Therefore, he didn't like others treating him like a child. However, there were many things that he was powerless to do. You did the right thing. Mu Rongshuan looked at his son lovingly, his heart filled with guilt. As a father, the saddest thing was that he couldn't give his son a good environment to grow up in. He understood his son and understood what his son was thinking. However, he couldn't do anything about the Mu family situation. Father, I want to be alone for a while. Mu Hao left alone. His small back seemed so tenacious. He was very weak, but he was very stubborn. He wanted to become stronger, but he didn't know what to do. In a deserted alley, Mu Hao sat in a corner in a daze. He stared at the stone floor in a daze, but his tears couldn't stop flowing. No matter how tenacious he was still a 13-year-old child. He was under pressure that he shouldn't have. He watched as the Mu family fell step by step, but he couldn't do anything. Big brother Mu Yu, if only I had your abilities, I would definitely be able to help father and grandfather share the burden. Mu Hao muttered. He thought of Mu Yu's big brother that he had never met. Mu Hao had always stubbornly believed that the true God's disciple was his big brother, so he had always admired Mu Yu. He hoped that Mu Yu would be able to step forward when a Mu family was in danger, but he didn't know where to find Mu Yu. Mu Hao would never have thought that his big brother Mu Yu was actually the Feng Mu that he had always belittled. Footsteps slowly sounded on the quiet street, and a pair of feet appeared in Mu Hao's field of vision. Mu Hao raised his head in confusion, but he was met with a pair of equally confused eyes. What are you doing here? Didn't you leave? Mu Hao lowered his head and wiped away his tears. He didn't want Feng Mu to see him cry. Mu Yu pursed his lips. Looking at this brother that he had yet to recognize, he didn't know what to do. He could have stopped Mu Hao from being humiliated by the Gu family, and he could have stopped the Mu family from being destroyed, but he still couldn't let it go. He didn't know what he was waiting for. Perhaps it was an apology, or perhaps it was an explanation. He didn't know if the Mu family's destruction would make him feel better. Although he was a descendant of the Mu family, after all these years, if it wasn't for the fact that he was the true God's disciple, and if the Mu family wasn't on the verge of destruction, would they have thought of looking for him? If the true God's disciple wasn't called Mu Yu, and Mu Qingfan wasn't defeated by Sikong Chiwen, the Mu family wouldn't have thought of a way to find this wandering child of the Mu family. Now, they wanted Mu Yu to save the Mu family. Didn't they think it was a bit too late? Mu Yu didn't understand why he had to help the Mu family. He couldn't forgive the Mu family for what they had done to him. The Mu family wanted him to help when they were in danger. When he was young, he sat alone in front of his house, waiting for his parents to come and pick him up. We're the Mu family. The Mu family didn't come, no one came. He grew up alone and had nothing to do with the Mu family. What kind of person do you think Mu Yu is? Mu Yu sat down, and like Mu Hao, he stared at the stone floor in a daze. Big brother Mu Yu is a person with a sense of responsibility. He punishes evil and contributes to the human race. He is a hero that everyone praises. If you still want to sully big brother Mu Yu in front of me, I definitely won't allow it. Mu Hao gritted his teeth and said. Mu Yu bitterly smiled. Do you think that if Mu Yu knows about your Mu family situation, he will help your Mu family? He will, Mu Hao said without hesitation. It was your grandfather who caused Mu Yu to wander outside. Your grandfather even wanted to abort the unborn Mu Yu. If it wasn't for your grandfather opposing your fourth uncle and fourth aunt being together, Mu Yu wouldn't be an orphan. Do you think Mu Yu won't resent your grandfather for what he did to him? He won't mind. Mu Hao bit his lips. He won't mind? If you were Mu Yu and your grandfather didn't let you see your parents when you were young, and even left you alone outside, what would you do? Muyu looked at Mu Hao. A trace of panic flashed through Mu Hao's eyes. He shook his head and said, My grandfather wouldn't do that. But your grandfather already did that to Muyu. Muyu's voice was a bit strange. Mu Hao lowered his head. If the true God disciple wasn't called Muyu, but Qingyan, Luo Shang, or Xiangnan, would you worship him? Do you worship the true God's disciple? Or do you worship your brother Muyu? Mu Hao was stunned. Mu Hao was stunned. He had never thought about this question before. Did he worship his own brother Muyu? Or was he the disciple of a true God? He worshipped Muyu only because he believed that his brother Muyu was the true God's disciple. There was no contradiction between the two. However, just as Feng Mu said, if the true God's disciple wasn't called Muyu, would he worship the true God's disciple? I don't know. Mu Hao's voice lowered. He wasn't sure which one he worshipped. He worshipped the true God's disciple mostly because he stubbornly believed that the true God's disciple was his brother, so he didn't allow anyone to speak ill of Muyu. He used to say that even if the true God's disciple wasn't his brother from the Mu clan, he would still worship Muyu, mostly because he was lying to himself. Because he couldn't be sure, and neither could anyone else. That was why he had a sliver of hope in his heart. He was lucky that the true God's disciple was his brother Muyu. Of course you don't know. Muyu sighed. He stood up and rubbed Mu Hao's head, saying, You have to be strong in the future, and don't place all your hopes on others. You're a member of the Mu clan, but Muyu might not be. If you want to protect your family, your parents, your grandfather, and your sister, you have to work hard on your cultivation. Only when you become strong will you not need to rely on others. Mu Hao listened quietly to Muyu's words. He clenched his fists and raised his head abruptly, asking, Can you teach me to become strong? However, the alley was already empty. Muyu sat in front of the window of the inn, staring at the bustling streets in a daze. He hadn't left his room for 2 days. He was purposely avoiding news about the Mu clan. He didn't want to hear about what happened to the Mu clan, who was hitting the Mu clan when they were down, and who was bullying the Mu clan. The Mu family had made him an orphan for so many years. He felt that the Mu family deserved everything that had happened to them. He wanted to stand by and watch as the Mu family was wiped out from Clearwater City with a clear conscience. However, deep in his heart, he was inexplicably worried about the Mu clan. Why should I help the Mu clan? I shouldn't have appeared in Clearwater City in the first place, right? Muyu turned around and laid on the bed, staring at the ceiling in a daze. The dragon vine laid beside him comfortably, squinting its eyes slightly. It didn't have so many worries. If Muyu hadn't heard that Tian Bue was coming to Clearwater City, he wouldn't have come here. He wouldn't have noticed even if the Mu clan got wiped out. He had nothing to do with the Mu clan for so many years, and he had never thought of looking for his own family. However, his identity was suddenly exposed in such a ridiculous way. Even though he already knew that he was a member of the Mu clan, he wasn't ready to become one. He still didn't understand why he had to become a member of the Mu clan. Was it just because of the familial ties that he didn't care about? Back then, Mu Tianhe chose to abandon Muyu, the illegitimate son of the Mu clan. He even wanted to kill Muyu for the sake of the Mu clan's reputation. What did such familial ties mean to Muyu? Muyu, I just went to the kitchen to look for food. I heard that the Mu clan is auctioning off their ancestral home today. It seems like the Mu clan is really at their wits' end. Are you really not going to take a look? Little Shuai slipped in through the window, hugging a drumstick as he spoke incoherently. The dragon vine snorted. What does that have to do with us? Also, did you steal food and not pay for it again? None of your business. Little Shuai jumped onto the table and started munching on the drumstick. Little Shuai and the dragon vine were the same. Both of them were always very free. One would look for food all day, while the other would sleep all day. They didn't have any unnecessary worries. Muyu turned a deaf ear. What did the auction of the Mu clan's ancestral home have to do with him? Chapter 503. Clearwater City also had a million-yuan trading company. Originally, this trading company wasn't very big. After all, Clearwater City wasn't a very prosperous place in the cultivation world. However, because of Sikong Chuan's sudden appearance and the battle between him and Tian Bue on the 6th of June, many cultivators were attracted to Clearwater City. This was a huge business opportunity, so the Million Yuan Trading Company had already expanded the scale of Clearwater City. The news that the Mu family's ancestral home was going to be auctioned at the Million Yuan Trading Company had already shocked many large families and cultivators in Clearwater City. The Mu family was originally one of the largest families in Clearwater City. Their ancestral home was relatively large and had been around for a long time. Its value was immeasurable. This piece of land was a hot steamed bun in many people's eyes. If they could get it, no amount of money would be too much. Mu Tianhe sat in the private room of the auction house dejectedly. He was already at his wit's end. Because of the deliberate suppression and warning by the Sikong family, the other families in Clearwater City avoided the Mu family. They didn't dare to extend a helping hand, afraid that they would become the next Mu family. Mu Tianhe couldn't stay in Clearwater City any longer. He planned to auction off the ancestral home and pay off all his debts. Then, he would leave Clearwater City with the Mu family. Rongshuan, how much do we owe in total? Mu Tianhe asked tiredly. Mu Rongshuan's face was also very haggard. He muttered to himself for a while before saying, according to the current estimates, the other places need about 9 million spirit stones. The Spirit Stone Bank owes too much money. If we want to pay it off, we need at least 10 million. After deducting the commission, we still need to leave some funds for backup. So today's Mu family mansion must be auctioned for at least 20 million. Moving the entire family was a huge project. After leaving Clearwater City, they still needed to find a place to stay. They needed to buy a new property and invest in a small business. Without enough money, it wasn't enough. Selling the ancestral home for 20 million, we're really ashamed of our ancestors. Mu Tianhe sighed. Father, don't worry. Our ancestral home is definitely worth more than 20 million. I just saw many rich and powerful people coming. Some are from Clearwater City, and some are from outside Clearwater City. They want to watch the battle between Sikong Chuan and Tian Bue. 20 million for such a huge ancestral home is definitely worth it. 20 million isn't a huge sum to them. Mu Rongshuan comforted him. I hope so. Mu Tianhe nodded, both mentally and physically exhausted. The scheduled time for the auction had arrived, and the huge auction house was packed to the brim. The host of the $1 Million Trading Company's auction was $1 Million Trading Company's daughter, Huaibei. Huaibei had come to Clearwater City early to prepare for the battle between Sikong Chuan and Tian Bue. Their trading company attached great importance to this famous battle. This battle would attract many self-cultivators to come and watch. As long as there were more people, there would be business. Therefore, $1 Million Trading Company would not let go of this opportunity. Everyone, it's my honor to host this auction. Huaibei stood on the stage and gracefully bowed to everyone. She was wearing a cheongsam today, and her slender thighs were faintly discernible. Her figure was graceful and natural, and many people's eyes couldn't help but light up. There's only one item up for auction today, and that's the Mu clan's ancestral home. I'm sure everyone knows that one of the biggest buildings in Clearwater City is the Mu family's ancestral mansion. The Mu family's ancestral mansion has a unique geography and excellent feng shui. It's a wonderful place to live. Due to a small change in the Mu family, we need to auction off the ancestral mansion to raise funds. The value of the Mu family's ancestral mansion is immeasurable. The starting price is 5 million, and each increment is at least 500,000. The auction begins now. Huaibei smiled slightly, and her clear and melodious voice resounded throughout the auction house. 6 million. Gu Hongyi couldn't wait to bid. The self-cultivators outside of Clearwater City didn't know how good the Mu family's ancestral mansion was, but these big shots in Clearwater City definitely knew. According to Gu Hongyi's estimates, the Mu family's ancestral mansion was worth at least 50 million. 7 million. Gu Hongyi wasn't the only one who coveted the Mu family's ancestral mansion. 7,500,000. Mu Tianhe was listening to the bids of those people. Many people were following the price, and his heart relaxed a little. As long as more people bid, it shouldn't be a problem to reach 20 million in the end. The Mu family's ancestral mansion isn't bad. I'll bid 8 million. A loud voice resounded in everyone's ears. Once this voice was heard, everyone's gaze landed on him. Then, their pupils constricted slightly. It was the head of the Sikong family, Sikong Gaoming. Sikong Gaoming scanned everyone. Because of his son, Sikong Chiwen, the Sikong family had become the biggest family in Clearwater City. No one dared to fight with them openly. This was because no one dared to offend a dark horse on the supreme, immortal leaderboard. Everyone, my son, Sikong Chiwen, really likes the Mu family's ancestral mansion. He wants to use it as his place of cultivation. I wonder if everyone can give me, Sikong Gaoming, some face? Sikong Gaoming said slowly. He specially emphasized the two words Sikong Chiwen to remind the other bidders not to ask for a rebuff. Give you face. Many people were secretly scolding Sikong Gaoming for being shameless. If it wasn't for Sikong Chiwen, who would give Sikong Gaoming face? During the auction, the highest bidder would get the Mu family's ancestral mansion. It was a fair competition, but Sikong Gaoming actually brought up his son and pointed out that his son wanted the Mu family's ancestral mansion. However, Sikong Chiwen's name was too big, and it intimidated many people who wanted to bid. Sikong Chiwen was now one of the extreme immortals with the most potential. Many people had high hopes for him. Some people even believed that if Sikong Chiwen had enough time, he would definitely be able to enter the top 9 extreme immortals. One must know that the top 9 extreme immortals on the Supreme Immortal Leaderboard would have a very high status in the future. Even the sect leaders of the 8 sects wouldn't dare to speak to them. Although Sikong Chiwen was only ranked 51st, he was still a dark horse. No one knew if he would become one of the top 9 extreme immortals in the future. When that time came, Sikong Chiwen's prestige would be sacred and inviolable. If someone offended the Sikong family now, Sikong Chiwen would only need to say a word if he wanted to take revenge in the future. Therefore, when Sikong Gaoming bid 8 million, everyone quietened down. Even the outsiders from Clearwater City didn't bid. 8 million? Only 8 million? Mu Tianhe slammed the table and stood up. He looked angrily at Sikong Gaoming through the window. He actually forgot about this. With Sikong Gaoming's personality, how could he not covet the Mu family's ancestral mansion? Sikong Gaoming used his son as a bargaining chip to warn everyone not to interfere in this matter. If the Mu family's ancestral mansion was only auctioned for 8 million, it would be far from enough to repay the debt. Increase the price. Hurry up and increase the price. Mu Tianhe was so angry that his whole body trembled. If it was only 8 million, his Mu family would really be finished. Those creditors definitely wouldn't let them off, and they wouldn't be able to walk out of Clearwater City. However, no one dared to challenge Sikong Gaoming. Sikong Chiwen, this extreme immortal with extraordinary potential, had too much influence. No one dared to offend the Sikong family for fear of becoming the next Mu family. Mu Tianhe looked at those who chose to give up in despair. He then glared at the smug Sikong Gaoming. He couldn't wait to rush over and kill Sikong Gaoming. However, he couldn't. Putting aside the fact that Sikong Gaoming had 2 out-of-bodyguards, even the auction house wouldn't allow him to make a move. Sikong Gaoming, you bastard! Mu Rongshuan was so angry that he gritted his teeth. The ancestral mansion was originally supposed to be auctioned for 20 million, but Sikong Gaoming had forcefully lowered the price to 8 million. 8 million was far from enough to repay the debt. Huaibei still had a smile on her face. She was much more mature than when she hosted the floating Immortal Island auction a few years ago. The higher the price of the item, the higher the commission of the auction house. 8 million was clearly not the ideal price in Huaibei's heart. However, she didn't express her dissatisfaction. The Sikong family's interference wasn't unexpected. 8 million going once. Is there anyone willing to bid higher? Everyone's mouth twitched. The Mu family's ancestral mansion was snatched by the Sikong family for only 8 million. Sikong Gaoming really got a huge bargain. 8 million going twice. Mu Tianhe slumped in his chair. He knew that the Mu family was finished. They didn't even have the capital to leave Clearwater City. How would those creditors allow them to leave? Mu Tianhe might be in the out-of-body stage, which was considered extremely high in Clearwater City, but the other families didn't lack out-of-body stage experts. If they joined forces, they could completely wipe out the Mu family. 8 million. Mu Tianhe had already closed his eyes. His heart was dead. 9 million. A clear and calm voice rang out, causing Mu Tianhe to open his eyes abruptly. Everyone in the auction house also widened their eyes. They didn't understand who dared to compete with the Sikong family for the Mu family's ancestral mansion. Everyone turned to look in the direction of the voice, but the person who spoke was currently in a private room. The windows of the private room weren't open, so no one knew who was challenging Sikong Gaoming. Sir, do you really want to compete with the Sikong family for the Mu family's ancestral mansion? Sikong Gaoming's expression was very ugly as he asked in a deep voice. However, the person in the private room didn't even bother to reply. There was still no sound for a long time, as if Sikong Gaoming's words were nonsense. 9 million going once, Huai Bea reminded kindly. Sikong Gaoming snorted coldly and said, 9,550,000. My son, Sikong Chiwen, wants the Mu family's ancestral mansion. Please reconsider. 10 million. An indifferent voice rang out again. Mu Tianhe's expression became agitated. It was already 10 million. At this moment, he hoped that Sikong Gaoming would quickly raise the price. It didn't matter if the ancestral mansion fell into the hands of the Sikong family. What he needed now was money. As long as he paid off the debt, he could bring his family members and leave Clearwater City to find another place to settle down. He wouldn't have to be troubled by Sikong Gaoming anymore. However, Sikong Gaoming didn't continue bidding. This was because his main goal was to force the Mu family into a dead end. He understood the Mu family situation very well. He knew that the Mu family wanted to rely on auctioning the ancestral mansion to obtain spirit stones to pay off the debt. He could give up the Mu family's ancestral mansion, but how could he let Mu Tianhe's scheme succeed? I won't bid anymore. I hope that Sir can protect the Mu family's ancestral mansion well. Sikong Gaoming's expression was ferocious. He didn't hide the threat in his words at all. He was also warning everyone to stop bidding. If he couldn't get something from the auction, he would use his methods to get it. Everyone present was smart. Naturally, they understood the meaning behind Sikong Gaoming's words. They weren't stupid enough to compete with Sikong Gaoming. However, everyone was very curious. Who exactly was the person who dared to go against Sikong Gaoming? 10 million going once. Mu Tianhe was stunned. Although the price doubled, 10 million was still not enough. 10 million going twice. 10 million going thrice. Sold. 10 million. 10 million. What should I do? Mu Tianhe sat on the chair in low spirits. It seemed like a good thing that the Mu family's ancestral mansion didn't fall into the hands of Sikong Gaoming. However, the Mu family was still helpless. 10 million wasn't enough to save the Mu family. Mu Yu, who was in the cubicle, sighed softly. In the end, he still couldn't cross the hurdle in his heart. He chose to come here and bid for the Mu family's ancestral mansion. Chapter 504. Do you think I did the right thing? Mu Yu caressed Xiao Shuai and asked in a low voice. He did not owe the Mu clan anything. Instead, it was Mu Tianhe who owed him. However, Mu Yu could not get over this hurdle in his heart. If the Mu clan had been silently exterminated before he came to Clearwater City, he might not have even frowned. However, he had to face this situation. His conscience did not allow him to stand by and do nothing. Anyway, the Mu clan looks pretty big and the drumsticks are delicious, Xiao Shuai said heartlessly. Mu Yu smiled bitterly. Huai Bea knocked on the door and walked in. When she saw Mu Yu shrouded in a blurry shadow, she immediately understood that he was an array master. Only array masters would use array techniques to disguise themselves and not let others see their appearance. Array master, how should I address you? Huai Bea revealed a charming smile. When Mu Yu came, she did not personally receive him, so she did not know Mu Yu's background. My surname is Yan. Mu Yu casually came up with a surname. At the same time, his voice became slightly hoarse as he did not want others to recognize him. Mr. Yin, the total is 10 million spirit stones. The Mu clan requires spirit stones and will not accept any substitute treasures. Huaibei smiled warmly. Muyu nodded. I do not have enough spirit stones. However, can I exchange some spirit stones from your auction house to pay? This kind of request was actually very common in auction houses. Auction houses would provide this kind of equivalent exchange service. Huaibei said, I wonder what Mr. Yin would like to exchange for. How much are these 5-tier 6 pills worth? Muyu had too many pills in his pocket. Previously, he had extorted so many pills from the high-level alchemists of the Danding sect. Until now, he had not used them all. He didn't use any medicinal pills. Compared to using medicinal pills, he preferred to rely on his own strength. Tier 6 pills? Huaibei's expression finally changed. She looked at Muyu in astonishment. She did not understand how an array master could have something as precious as tier 6 pills. A trace of seriousness appeared on her face as she said, 5 6-tier medicinal pills. Can you let me appraise them? Muyu directly handed it over, not feeling any heartache at all. Huaibei took it carefully, afraid that something might go wrong. For Muyu, level 6 medicinal pills were like sugar pills. But for Huaibei and other self-cultivators, it was a different story. 1 tier 6 medicinal pill was already a rather precious existence. But he never would have thought that this array master could actually take out 5 3-tier 6 wind resistance pills and 2 9 transformations yang restoration pills. Heavens! Please wait a moment. Even the knowledgeable Huaibei could not help but exclaim. No matter if it was a level 5 or a level 6 elixir, they were extremely precious in the cultivation world. After all, except for places like the Danding sect, high-level alchemists were rare. The person in front of her was clearly an array master, but he was able to take out 5 6-tier medicinal pills. It really made Huaibei endlessly shocked. Since when did array masters and alchemists have anything to do with each other? Every self-cultivator knew that array masters and alchemists were two extremes. Array masters' battle prowess was recognized as the strongest. Although they could not last long in a battle, Xiantian array masters did not lack cultivation resources, so they could completely cover up their shortcomings. Alchemists, on the other hand, were known for their weak battle prowess. Their advantage was that they had many life-saving medicinal pills which could prevent them from dying too quickly. No one would associate these two together. But who would have thought that this array master could actually take out 5 precious level 6 medicinal pills? I happened to help a Danding sect's level 6 alchemist. The other party gave it to me as a token of gratitude. May I ask, Miss Huaibei, how many spirit stones can these 5 level 6 medicinal pills be exchanged for? In order to dispel Huaibei's doubts, Muyu explained a little. He also thought that an array master should not have so many level 6 medicinal pills. If it was not done properly, it might make people suspicious. So it's like this. Huaibei nodded her head gently. She did not doubt Muyu's explanation. Otherwise, she would be very curious as to why an array master would have a problem with medicinal pills. Huaibei composed herself and pondered for a moment. She said, a level 6 Imperial Wind pill can be exchanged for 2 million spirit stones. A 9 revolving Yang pill can be exchanged for 3 million spirit stones. A total of 12 million spirit stones. What do you think? 12 million spirit stones was not a small number. Huaibei's price was higher than the market price. She wanted to get these 5 level 6 medicinal pills. Otherwise, if Muyu took them to auction, the price might be even higher. Then, they would not have a chance to get the million spirit stones. Okay, let's do it like that. Muyu did not want to haggle over anything. In any case, if there were no more medicinal pills in the future, he would just go to the old man to extort a few more. Then please wait a moment. I will immediately prepare the spirit stones for you. Huaibei could tell from the other party's voice that he should not be old, but she was not very sure, so she did not say anything. Soon, she leisurely came back with a black jade pendant in her hand. This jade pendant is our million spirit stone jade pendant. The corresponding number is engraved on it. Mr. Array Master, this black jade pendant represents a distinguished guest of the million spirit stone jade pendant. As long as you take this jade pendant to any of our banks, you can exchange it for the corresponding spirit stones. There are 2 million spirit stones in this jade pendant. The remaining 10 million spirit stones will be paid to the Mu clan. Huaibia was very efficient. She knew that the array master in front of her had to pay the Mu clan 10 million spirit stones. So, she separated the other party's money and saved the trouble. There was a knock on the door. Huaibia quickly went to open the door and then invited Mu Tianhe in. Mu Tianhe's expression was still very depressed, but he still forced himself to be spirited. This time, he came to sign the transfer agreement of the ancestral home with the buyer. He raised his head and saw the hazy array patterns around Muyu. He was a little surprised. He did not expect that the person who bought his house was actually an array master. Do I have to meet the buyer? Muyu stared at Mu Tianhe. This old man was his biological grandfather, but Muyu did not want to recognize him. He also did not want to see him in such a place. Mr. Yin, regarding the transfer agreement of the ancestral home, our auction house will act as the notary. So, both parties must be present to avoid unnecessary disputes. If one party goes back on their word in the future, we will deal with it fairly. Huaibia explained with a smile. Generally, the buyer and seller of the auction items did not need to meet. However, because the ancestral home was a fixed asset, it could not be directly taken away without proof. If Mu Tianhe took the money and was not willing to hand over the house, Muyu would not be able to directly take it. This would cause a dispute. So, as the notary of the million spirit stone jade pendant, Huaibia would ensure the fairness of this transaction. If one party went back on their word, the million spirit stone jade pendant would come forward and force both parties to follow the agreement. Mu Tianhe suspiciously sized up Muyu, who was covered in array patterns. Although the other party's surroundings seemed to be distorted by something, he felt that he had seen Muyu's figure somewhere before. However, he could not remember when he had seen this Mr. Yin. Huaibia had already prepared 3 copies of the agreement. These 3 copies of the agreement had a special array pattern. All one needed to do was to inject a drop of one's blood into it. For cultivators, a drop of blood was not a big deal. It did not cause them any pain or itch. The agreement was divided into 3 copies. Muyu and Mu Tianhe each had 1 copy, and the million spirit stone jade pendant would keep 1 copy. Muyu did not say anything. He directly squeezed out 3 drops of blood and injected it into the buyer's signature on the 3 copies of the agreement. Mu Tianhe took a deep breath and extended his trembling finger. If his blood fell, it would mean that the Mu family's ancestral home would really be destroyed by his hands. Sigh. Mu Tianhe forcefully suppressed the grief in his heart and injected his blood into the seller's signature on the 3 copies of the agreement. The blood dripped onto the paper and a golden array pattern appeared, indicating that the agreement was in effect. How could Mu Tianhe have imagined that the Mu family's ancestral home would actually be bought by the grandson he had almost killed back then? Muyu quietly looked at his own grandfather. It was very strange to buy the Mu family's ancestral home from his own grandfather in the name of a stranger. The Mu family owed him so much. Now that he had taken all of the Mu family's foundation, was this a punishment for Mu Tianhe? Muyu did not know that by buying the Mu family's ancestral home, it meant that all of the Mu family's members would have to move out of the Mu family's ancestral home. It would also become his personal property. This home was of no use to Muyu. He was used to being a drifting leaf. It was impossible for him to settle down in one place. However, he could not directly send the Mu family's ancestral home back. Once he did so, many people would suspect his relationship with the Mu family. Muyu was still not ready to become a member of the Mu family. Then I'll take my leave. Muyu looked at his grandfather for the last time. He had many strange feelings in his heart, but he did not want to reveal them. He also did not want to say anything to Mu Tianhe. He wanted to leave this place. Mr. Yin, this old man has a presumptuous request. I wonder if you can agree to it? Mu Tianhe hurriedly said. Muyu stopped in his tracks. He did not turn around. He only said indifferently, "Speak." Mu Tianhe revealed a trace of awkwardness. He forced a smile and bowed. I wonder if you can give us a few days to move our things out. Mu Tianhe's expression was very sincere. The Mu family was a big family. It was impossible for them to move out so quickly. In the past few days, the Mu family had already sold off all the properties that belonged to them in Clearwater City. Now that even the Mu family's ancestral home was gone, they still needed to find a place to settle down temporarily. If they moved out directly, they would really end up on the streets. Mu could not bear it. After all, Mu Tianhe was his grandfather. He did not want to see the Mu family living on the streets, especially since the Mu family had two younger brothers and sisters, Mu Hao and Mu Xian. Mu Yu cared about them. He did not want them to be hurt. The one who caused Mu Yu to become an orphan was this extremely down-and-out old man in front of him. It was not the other members of the Mu family. Do as you see fit. Mu Yu walked towards the door again. Mr. Yin, why don't you give us a definite time? We will definitely move out before the deadline. Mu Tianhe shouted anxiously. He did not know what Mu Yu meant. If Mu Yu wanted the house tomorrow, what would happen to the Mu family? Chapter 505. For the next few days, Mu Yu stayed in his room and didn't go out at all. He didn't care about the house at all. The Mu family's ancestral mansion was dispensable in his eyes. Even if Mu Tianhe gave the entire Mu family to Mu Yu, he wouldn't raise an eyebrow. When Zhuge Shaoxing asked him to be the sect master of the Formation Glyph sect, he didn't even want to be the sect master. How could he lack the Mu family's mansion? Mu Yu didn't know how the Mu family was doing right now, nor did he know where they moved to. He kept convincing himself to admit his identity and help the Mu family, but he couldn't find a reason to forgive Mu Tianhe. He didn't even want to find his own father, Mu Zhixing. Why should he forgive Mu Tianhe? So what if Mu Tianhe regretted it now? If Sikong Chuan didn't rise up, would Mu Tianhe repent to his son? If Mu Yu was just an unknown person and wasn't the disciple of a true god, would the Mu family think that they had such a powerful grandson wandering outside? Mu Yu was mocked by many children in the village because he didn't have his parents by his side since he was young. Although he always acted carefree and didn't care, he still had a deep hatred for his parents who abandoned him. Mu Yu didn't understand why parents would abandon their children. He thought that it was natural for children to be accompanied by their parents, but he didn't. He only had the village chief to accompany him. Now that he knew that everything was caused by Mu Tianhe, he couldn't let it go for a long time. He lived alone for 20 years with the help of others. Who could understand the bitterness in his heart? Even if he found his own family by chance, why would he help them? He didn't even have any interaction with their world. They only knew about Mu Yu because he was the disciple of a true god, and not because their Mu family had a grandson like him. He suddenly understood why Qiao Shui would rather be a monster than help the human race. It was because Qiao Shui's family had deeply hurt her and made her homeless. Mu Yu and Qiao Shui were the same. They were both abandoned by their families and grew up looking at other people's faces. Mu Yu, don't think too much. You've already done very well. At least the ancestral home of the Mu clan did not fall into the hands of others, and you did not drive them out, did you? Long Tongue wagged her tail on the chair, while Xiao Shui gnawed on a pile of chicken drumsticks on the table. From time to time, a chicken bone would be thrown at Long Tongue, but Long Tongue would slap the chicken bone back with her tail. The two guys were eating while fighting with the chicken bones, and they were addicted to it. Mu Yu, what are you thinking? Is there any problem that can't be solved by eating a chicken drumstick? Little Handsome asked heartlessly. After a while, Little Handsome answered himself. If there is, then eat 2 drumsticks. Little Mouse, are you stupid? Mu Yu is still brooding over the fact that the Mu family abandoned him when he was young. If the Mu family hadn't abandoned Mu Yu when he was young, Mu Yu wouldn't have been an orphan in the past. Longting knew more than Xiao Shui. But if the Mu family hadn't abandoned Mu Yu, he wouldn't have met such a handsome and charming person like me. If the Mu family hadn't abandoned Mu Yu, you big earthworm would have been refined into medicine a long time ago, right? Xiao Shui spat out another chicken drumstick at Long Tongue. You. Long Tongue realized that she didn't seem to be able to respond to Xiao Shui's words. If it hadn't been for Mu Yu, why would Withered Tree and Evergreen make a move? It was very likely that it would have become a primer to prolong someone's life. Thinking of this, Long Tongue suddenly felt annoyed. If it hadn't been for Mu Yu, it really might not have been able to survive. What about you? If the Mu family hadn't abandoned Mu Yu, Muyu wouldn't have met that amiable old man Feng Haochen, and he wouldn't have met Big Sister Tian Ran and Big Sister Qiao Shui. I love it when they hug me. Their chests are so soft. Xiao Shui giggled foolishly. Are you stupid? Jianing and Chun Feng will definitely find Muyu. After all, Muyu is someone who has Mu Yuming's ability. Long Tong said. Not necessarily. That white-bearded old man didn't find Xiao Shui either. Even if we don't talk about him, that eccentric Deadwood Daddy shouldn't have met Muyu, right? If he didn't meet Deadwood Daddy, that unlucky Stargate guy wouldn't have killed Deadwood Daddy, and Muyu wouldn't have gone to the Formation sect to find the Formation Heavenly Tao, much less become the sect master of the Formation Glyph sect. Looking on the bright side, isn't there a saying where there are gains, there are losses? Xiao Shui took another bite of chicken drumstick. Shut up, little mouse. Why are you using Deadwood as an example? According to your logic, Deadwood's death is also Mu Tian's fault. Don't you know what Deadwood means to Muyu? Long Tong scolded softly. If the Mu family hadn't abandoned Muyu, then Deadwood Daddy wouldn't have meant anything to Muyu. Xiao Shui wagged his big tail. Muyu didn't say anything. He suddenly realized that Xiao Shui's words were right. If the Mu family hadn't abandoned him, then he wouldn't have encountered these people and these things. Perhaps he would have lived a better life, without worries, with the care and companionship of his loved ones. But at the same time, it also meant that all the people he met now would be erased from his life and completely disappear. But those people were the best friends in his life. He didn't want to lose Tian Ran and Qiao Shui. He didn't want to lose his master. He didn't want to lose his senior brothers and sisters, and he didn't want to lose Deadwood Daddy, who often scolded him but also cared about him. You say it like Muyu was right to be abandoned by the Mu family? Long Tongue didn't understand the stakes for a while. That's what you said. I didn't say. First of all, the most important thing is that Muyu didn't meet me, Xiao Shui, which is a huge regret. Moreover, without these experiences, Muyu wouldn't have that many pills. How could he afford so many chicken legs? Maybe he wouldn't even have the ability to buy the Mu family's ancestral house now. Sikong Chiwen would still rise and suppress the Mu family. If he cultivated in the Mu family, his cultivation wouldn't be as high as it is now. Even if Muyu's cultivation is now against Sikong Chiwen, who is at the spirit severing stage, it would be difficult for him to gain an advantage. Then, how can the other Muyu who grew up in the Mu family save the Mu family? Isn't it a dead end? At least we can stay out of it now. But the other Muyu who grew up in the Mu family is dead for sure. Xiao Shui snorted. There would always be some regrets and flaws in life. Who could tell the cause and effect of this? If I didn't meet a glutton like you, maybe my wallet would be a lot bigger. Muyu suddenly laughed. Xiao Shui's words suddenly woke him up. He realized that the little glutton was quite honest sometimes. Although he was a bit narcissistic, some of his words were reasonable. If Mu Qianhe didn't do this, he would grow up under the care of his parents, but his cultivation wouldn't be as high as it was now. This was because without his master's teachings, without Deadwood Daddy's teachings, he wouldn't be able to have his current achievements. And facing the sudden rise of Sikong Chiwen, he could only become a member of the Mu family in despair and couldn't do anything for the Mu family. Let's go. Let's go to the Mu family. The haze in Muyu's heart was swept away. This was a blessing in disguise. Some things were hard to say. Are you planning to help the Mu family? Long Tongue asked curiously. A strange light flashed in Muyu's eyes. He shook his head. It's not that simple. Although Xiao Shui's words are correct, all of this was caused by Mu Tianhe. I need an explanation from Mu Tianhe. I need to see if he has the qualifications to be my grandfather. Right now, the Mu family's ancestral home is my property. I haven't even taken a good look at my property yet. The Mu family was really just an empty shell now. The huge family business seemed to have been destroyed overnight. The 10 million from selling the ancestral home was far from enough to pay off the debt. In order to pay off the debt, everything that could be sold was sold. The Mu family servants were all sent away. The Mu family's former prosperity could no longer be seen. Instead, it seemed a bit bleak. Mu Tianhe looked at the empty hall. The precious vases, paintings, and other decorations in the hall were all sold. Even the high-quality tables and chairs were replaced with a shabby set. Thinking back to the Mu family in his hands, from prosperity to decline, he could not help but feel sad. The Mu family had been passed down for hundreds of years, but it was destroyed in his hands. He could not absolve himself of the blame. "Father, we sold everything. We are still short of 2 million to pay off the debt." Mu Rongxuan walked in with a haggard face. He had been busy for the past few days, selling all of the valuable antiques in the family. After all, the Mu family had a long history. There were still many valuable things. Selling these things would almost pay off the debt. "We are still short of 2 million. Mu Tianhe looked very old. He sat down, and the chair below him slightly shook and creaked, as if it was about to fall apart. "Father, it's been 6 days. Why hasn't the Mr. Yin who bought our ancestral home come yet?" Mu Mingda also walked in. He also looked very tired. These few days, the Mu family's matters had tormented everyone. No one could sleep well. "It's good that he didn't come. Have you found a temporary residence? When the array master comes, we will move out." Mu Tianhe sighed. "Not yet. Because of the threat of the Sikong family, many people don't dare to have any dealings with us, so—" Mu Jidong shook his head. The father and son all shook their heads and did not speak. After a long time, Mu Tianhe said, "Right now, the Mu family's only real estate is the cemetery on the outskirts of the city. If we still haven't found a place to stay when Mr. Yin comes, then we will go to the cemetery and build a few sheds to live in first." Live in the cemetery. The cemetery was the place where the ancestors of the Mu family were buried. Mu Tianhe could sell anything, but the cemetery was the only place he was not willing to sell. If he couldn't even guard the tomb of his ancestors, then he would be unfilial. Mu Rongxuan and Mu Mingda looked at each other, their eyes revealing waves of helplessness. The Mu family had been reduced to the point where they could only live in the cemetery with the dead. It was truly desolate. Mu Hao suddenly rushed in and said breathlessly, "Grandfather, a strange person came to our house. He said he is Mr. Yin and wants to see you." "Mr. Yin?" Mu Tianhe stood up and sighed. "What should come has come the end. Father, why don't we ask Mr. Yin for a few more days? Wait until we find a place to stay before moving away. After all, living in the cemetery is not a good choice." Mu Rongxuan hesitated. "No need. Mu Tianhe, have always kept my promises. He has already given us so many days. This place is no longer our place. Now that we are living under someone else's roof, how can we have the face to bargain with him? What's wrong with living in the cemetery? Our ancestors all lived there. Could it be that they would harm us?" Mu Tianhe berated. "You want to live in the cemetery?" Mu Yu said in surprise. He had appeared in the hall at some point. Chapter 506. "Mr. Yin, you're here." Mu Tianhe put away his surprised expression and cupped his hands at Mu Yu, who was surrounded by formation patterns. Although Mu Yu didn't reveal a powerful aura, he was able to appear silently and compete with the Sikong clan, who was at the peak of their power for the Mu clan's ancestral home. Mu Tianhe didn't believe that Mu Yu didn't have anything to rely on. Mu Tianhe was very sure that Mr. Yan's cultivation was above his, so he didn't dare to be negligent. "You want to live in the cemetery?" Mu Yu asked again. "Live with a dead person?" Mu Tianhe was embarrassed, but he still said in a neither servile nor overbearing manner, "We've made a fool of ourselves in front of Mr. Yan. Since Mr. Yan is here, then this mansion is already Mr. Yan's. We'll move out in a while and won't occupy this mansion anymore." "You still haven't found a place to stay after so many days?" Mu Yu's gaze landed on Mu Hao, who was staring at him. Mu Hao's expression was very calm. He looked at Mu Yu, who was covered in formation patterns, without any fear. On the contrary, his eyes were filled with a trace of resoluteness. Mu Hao didn't look like he was shocked at all. It was obvious that he already knew what he wanted to do. "To be honest, we've already sold everything to pay off our debts. We still owe money now. We don't have any extra money to buy a place to live. Now, we can only temporarily stay in the cemetery." Mu Tianhe sighed. Mu Yu looked at Mu Tianhe, who had become extremely old after being tormented by the Mu clan's matters, and felt compassion in his heart. However, he still felt that living in the cemetery was too much. It felt very strange to live with a dead person. Mu pondered for a moment and asked, "How much debt does your Mu clan owe?" Mu Tianhe didn't know why Mu asked this. The amount of debt the Mu clan owed didn't seem to have much to do with Mr. Yin. However, he still helplessly replied, 2 million. 2 million? Why don't you sell the Mu clan cemetery to me for 2 million? Mu Yu knew the location of the cemetery. When he took Mu Xine out to play, she had told him about it. He didn't want to help the Mu family for no reason, so he wanted to use this method to repay the Mu family's debt. With a straight face, Mu Tianhe solemnly said, "Mr. Yin, this is our family's matter, so please don't make irresponsible suggestions. Not being able to protect the Mu clan's property is already a disgrace to me, Mu Tianhe. How can I sell the Mu clan's cemetery? How can I face the ancestors of the Mu clan?" Since Mu Yu had bought the mausoleum of the Mu clan, he naturally wouldn't touch a single strand of its hair, but Mu Yu didn't appreciate his kindness. Mu Yu was also annoyed. He said, "The dead are already gone. The living must strengthen themselves. You're a person with one foot in the grave. It doesn't matter if you live in the cemetery, but what about the child behind you? Was he going to live with the dead at such a young age? You're really a competent grandfather. You're not allowed to talk about my grandfather like that." Mu Hao angrily stood in front of Mu Tianhe and roared at Mu Yu. "Little Hao, don't be rash." Mu Tianhe blocked Mu Hao. "Did I say anything wrong? I heard that your family has a few children who don't know the ways of the world, right? You let these young children suffer because of your incompetence, but you still refuse to lower yourself. You're an out-of-body cultivator, and your strength is considered top-notch in Clearwater City. I think that as long as you're willing to lower yourself to become someone's guard or work for a family, you'll be able to find a place to stay. Is your face more important than your grandson?" Mu Yu coldly said. Back then, Mu Tianhe felt that his reputation had been swept to the ground when Mu Zexing and Zhu Qiuqi eloped. Thus, he personally went to bring his son back, causing Mu Yu to become an orphan. If Mu Tianhe still felt that his face was important at this time, Mu Yu would never acknowledge him as his biological grandfather. Mu Tianhe's old face turned red at Mu Yu's words. Mu Yu's words were true, and he really couldn't lower his face. With his cultivation and ability, if he was willing to lower himself to work for a family, there would definitely be someone willing to take him in. However, Mu Tianhe had always been the one to order others around. How could he allow others to order him around? Asking him to be a servant was worse than killing him. "My grandfather won't be someone's guard. I'm willing to live in the cemetery with my grandfather. What does that have to do with you? Since the house is yours, it's yours. We'll naturally leave this place. We don't need you to tell us what to do." Mu Hao angrily said. "You still need your grandson to protect you? As a grandfather, you're really something." Mu Yu bluntly reprimanded. "I'll consider Mr. Yan's words. Actually, Mr. Yin might not know this, but due to Seikong Gaoming's deliberate suppression, I'm afraid that no one in Clearwater City would dare to take us in. However, I'll leave Clearwater City and try my luck elsewhere. We'll take our leave now." Mu Tianhe's face was flushed red as he cupped his hands and prepared to leave the Mu residence with the others. "Wait a moment," Mu Yu said. "The house is already yours. What else do you want?" Mu Hao said angrily. Mu Yu was too lazy to pay attention to this rash young man. He took out a black jade pendant and threw it on the table. He said, "There are 2 million in this jade pendant. I live in this house, and it just so happens that I lack a good steward. You have reached out-of-body stage. If you can stay and be my steward, these 2 million are yours." From the owner of the Mu residence to the steward of the Mu residence, Mu Tianhe clenched his fist tightly. How could he accept the huge difference in status from a master to a servant? Not to mention in the old residence that he had lived in his entire life. Think about it yourself. Your Mu family still owes others 2 million. I'm afraid that you won't even be able to leave Clearwater City. Many people are waiting to collect their debts from you. With your cultivation, I'm sure you won't be able to protect everyone in the Mu family. Once the other members of the Mu family leave on their own, they will definitely be targeted by their creditors. It's up to you whether to choose your pride or your family." Mu Yu said indifferently. Mu Tianhe was in a dilemma. He had to put down his pride in order to go from being the owner of the Mu residence to being its steward. He had never bowed to anyone in his entire life. Now that he had to bow to someone in order to protect his family, he didn't know if he could do it. However, Mu was right. He was in the out-of-body stage, but his family didn't. Those debt collectors would definitely take revenge on his family when he wasn't paying attention. He couldn't possibly be by his family's side all the time. The 2 million on the table was too important to him. Muyu looked at his biological grandfather quietly. Of course, he didn't really want to order his grandfather around to vent his anger. He was only doing this because he couldn't stand Mu Tianhe's laughable pride. Back then, Mu Tianhe felt that Mu Zhexing and Zhu Xiaoqi's elopement made him lose face and was mocked by everyone. That was why he broke up the two of them at all costs, causing Mu Yu to become an orphan and wander alone for so many years. Now, Mu Yu wanted Mu Tianhe to understand that pride wasn't that important when it came to the lives of his children and grandchildren. He could help the Mu family get through this crisis, but the prerequisite was that Mu Tianhe had to give Mu Yu a real reason for him to help. "We don't want your stinky money. We will find a way to pay it back ourselves," Mu Hao said angrily. "Whether you want it or not is your choice. Whether or not you want to be the steward of the Mu Mansion is also your choice. I'm not forcing you," Mu Yu said coldly. In the end, Mu Tianhe was Mu Yu's biological grandfather. Although Mu Yu hated him, he didn't want to see Mu Tianhe bowing in front of others. However, he also hated Mu Tianhe's so-called pride, so he chose a compromise. He wanted Mu Tianhe to put down his pride and become the steward of the Mu Mansion. He wanted to help Mu Yu manage the Mu Mansion and teach Mu Tianhe a lesson for what he did to Mu Yu. Naturally, Mu Yu wouldn't choose to make things difficult for Mu Tianhe. As long as Mu Tianhe could put down his pride and agree to be Mu Yu's steward, Mu Yu would disappear from the Mu family's sight and never take a step into the Mu family again. In a sense, Mu Tianhe's steward was equivalent to the master of the Mu Mansion. Mu Yu was also using another method to return the ancestral mansion to them. Most importantly, the Mu Mansion would no longer be surnamed Mu. If they changed their surname to Yin, Mu Tianhe would act as the steward in front of outsiders. If others wanted to cause trouble for the Mu family, they would have to be wary of the real master of the Mu Mansion. Mu Yu was also protecting the Mu family in a disguised way. He even thought of using Mr. Yan's identity to stir up trouble in Clearwater City. He wanted to let everyone know that the current master of the Mu Mansion was not to be trifled with. He wanted to warn those who wanted to hit the Mu family while they were down to not act rashly. However, Mu Tianhe shook his head and refused. Mu Tianhe, still have a backbone. I won't lower myself to others. Mr. Yan, please keep this jade pendant. Farewell. Mu Tianhe left the Mu family's main hall with his children and grandson to pack their things. Mu Yu looked at the backs of Mu Tianhe and the others as they left. He didn't stop them and just silently put away the jade pendant. "Actually, your grandfather still has his pride," Long Tongue said. "Pride? He doesn't care about pride. He cares about his face. He wants his son and grandson to die with him for his laughable pride? Does being a steward mean he has no pride? There are so many families in the cultivation world. Every family has a steward. Can you say that every steward has no pride?" Mu Yu was furious. He wanted to help the Mu family, but he didn't want to expose his identity because he still didn't want to admit that he was a part of the Mu family. However, Mu Tianhe rejected his conditions. This is a world where strength is respected. You don't have any ability to protect yourself in the cultivation world. Do you think you can protect yourself by relying on your laughable pride? The lives of all the Mu clan members were tied to him, but he still refused to lower his proud head and let everyone die for him. He's just reluctant to part with his position. It's not about pride. Mu Yu clenched his fists. Even now, Mu Tianhe still didn't understand that everything he did was simply stupid. He was in the out-of-body stage, so he wasn't afraid of being hunted down. However, what about Mu Hao and Mu Xian? Would they have to hide by Mu Tianhe's side for the rest of their lives? Did Mu Tianhe ever think that he would die one day? Then when you plan to help the Mu family, you won't let anything happen to the Mu family, right? Xiao Shuai asked. Chapter 507. Have you heard? Everyone from a Mu clan is living in the cemetery. Cemetery? Isn't that where the dead live? They're actually living with the dead? I wonder if the ancestors of the Mu clan would be so angry that they would crawl out of their graves in the middle of the night. What a joke! They can actually do such a thing. No choice. Who asked them to offend the Seacone clan? The Mu clan, who was originally the #1 clan in Clearwater City, was now reduced to living in the cemetery. This matter caused a huge commotion in Clearwater City and became everyone's topic of conversation. The cemetery was the place where the ancestors were laid to rest after they died. However, the Mu clan had nowhere else to go and were actually living with their ancestors. It was fine if they couldn't protect their family business, but they were actually fighting for territory with the dead. This was seen as extremely cowardly in many people's eyes. Mu Tianhe wanted to protect his face and was unwilling to be a manager. However, everyone was poking at the Mu clan's backbone. Once the Mu clan left the cemetery and went out to do things, they would be pointed at by others. Mu Rongshuan wore a bamboo hat and lowered his head. He hurriedly walked on the road back to the cemetery to purchase some necessities. Usually, these things were done by his eldest and second brother. Because they were at the nascent soul stage 9th firmament, no one dared to find trouble with them. However, because they had other things to do today, they could only let Mu Rongshuan come out. However, he was still stopped by someone. Lu Tu, who was in the magic treasure or business in Clearwater City, had been waiting for this opportunity. Mu Rongshuan, when are you going to return the 100,000 spirit stones that you owe our Gu clan? Lu Tu aggressively blocked Mu Rongshuan in the small alley. His cultivation was at the golden core stage 8th firmament and was much stronger than Mu Rongshuan. Manager Lu, I will definitely return the money that I owe you. Please give me a few more days. I beg you. Mu Rongshuan hurriedly smiled apologetically. Even though the Mu family had moved into the cemetery, Mu Tianhe's cultivation level was considered one of the best in Clearwater City. Therefore, no one dared to go to the cemetery to look for trouble with the Mu family. However, things would be different if the Mu family members were left alone outside. Just now, Mu Rongshuan had jumped over the mausoleum wall and thought that no one would notice, but he did not expect to be caught by Lu Tuesday. I don't think you're going to pay me back. Since the Mu family is already living in the graveyard, I don't want the 100,000 yuan anymore. I'll let you live in the graveyard and never come out. Lu Tu pushed Mu Rongshuan to the ground and waved his hand, preparing to teach Mu Rongshuan a lesson to vent his anger. Mu Rongshuan sighed his heart and hugged his head. But after waiting for a long time, Lu Tu's fist still didn't land. He raised his head in horror, only to find that Lu Tu's figure had long disappeared from the alley. What happened? Mu Rongshuan quickly got up. He thought he was going to be taught a lesson by Lu Tu, but Lu Tu suddenly disappeared. He looked around in bewilderment, but found nothing out of the ordinary. Just a moment ago, Lu Tu was still looking for him to get even with him, but now he was gone in the blink of an eye. However, he didn't have time to think too much about it. He hurriedly put on his bamboo hat and ran towards the cemetery. Ouch! Lu Tu fiercely fell to the ground. Originally, he planned to kill Mu Rongshuan to vent his anger. But before he could do anything, he was suddenly dragged away by a huge force. How much does the Mu family owe you? Mu Yu asked coldly. He used a light illusion technique, allowing Lu Tu to see a very fierce scar face in front of him. 100,000, 100,000. Lu Tu looked at the scar face in front of him in fear. This scar face was emitting a very terrifying aura, suppressing him completely. Just as Lu Tu's voice fell, a large pile of spirit stones suddenly fell from the sky and buried him in the spirit stones. This is 100,000 spirit stones. The next time I see you bullying the Mu family, I will definitely kill you. Do you understand? Mu Yu said. Lu Tu's whimpering voice came from under the pile of spirit stones. I know. Master, please spare me. 100,000 spirit stones was not a small amount. It was almost piled up into a small hill. Lu Tu was completely suppressed by Mu Yu's aura, so he did not have the ability to resist. He could only let the spirit stones press down on him. Very quickly, he felt his body become light. The terrifying aura disappeared, and he crawled out from the pile of spirit stones in a sorry state. But where was the Scarface? Mu Yu had been secretly watching Mu Rongxuan safely walk into the cemetery. Only then did he let out a sigh of relief. Is there need to be so conflicted? You protect the 11 people of the Mu family every day. Why don't you just forgive them? Save yourself the trouble. Little Shuai muttered. Protecting them is one thing. Forgiving them is another. This is a matter of principle. Mu Yu said in a deep voice. He only wanted Mu Tianhe to put down his face and do things for others. He did not want to see anything happen to the Mu family. The Mu family had a total of 11 people. Mu Mingda had a wife and a son. The number one genius of the Mu family, Mu Qingfan, who was heavily injured by Sikong Chiwen, was his son. Mu Jidong originally had 2 wives and 2 children. But Mu Jidong told them to go back to their families. Because of Sikong Chiwen, their families were not willing to help the Mu family. Mu Rongxuan had a wife and 2 children, Mu Hao and Mu Xian. They were not willing to leave and chose to live with Mu Tianhe in the cemetery. Other than that, there was also the drunk Mu Zhixing. He was Mu Yu's father. He was still unwilling to wake up. All the servants of the Mu family had left. Only the old steward Uncle Mu was loyal. He did not leave and chose to go through thick and thin with the Mu family. As the steward of the Mu family, Uncle Mu had quite a bit of savings. The Mu family's expenses were all funded by Uncle Mu. For the past 10 days, Mu Yu had been secretly protecting everyone in the Mu family. Once someone left the cemetery and was stopped by the debt collectors, they would be directly dealt with by Mu Yu. He used illusion techniques to appear in front of the creditors in various forms. He helped the Mu family pay off their debts and warned them not to cause trouble for the Mu family. What's the use of doing this? The Mu family doesn't know that you are secretly helping them. Long Tongue said, At least I know. Mu Yu did not want to feel guilty. He felt that he had already done his best. The 2 million debt owed by the Mu family had already been paid off by him. In the Mu family cemetery. The Mu family cemetery was very large and spacious. Originally, a tombkeeper was hired here all year round. However, after the Mu family's incident, the tombkeeper left. The small house where the tombkeeper lived was not small. There were a few tents set up beside it. It could barely be squeezed in. Mu Rongxuan hurriedly walked in and said, Father, I was blocked by another creditor just now. Are you all right? Mu Tianhe asked tiredly. I'm fine. This is the 3rd time I've been saved. I've been surrounded by creditors 3 times in a row, but I still don't know who that kind-hearted person is. Mu Rongxuan sat down. Mu Tianhe sighed. I never thought that there would still be someone standing on our Mu family side at this time. Alas, I really wish I knew who that person was so that I could thank him in person. Father, there's something important. Mu Mingda excitedly rushed in from outside. What is it? Mu Tianhe asked. I just followed your instructions to understand the debt and found that someone has paid off nearly half of it for us. Mu Mingda's face revealed joy. What? Half of the debt has been paid off? Doesn't that mean that someone paid $1 million for us? Mu Tianhe was extremely surprised and continued. Did you ask them who helped us pay? Mu Mingda said, I did, but they all said different things. The owner of the medicinal shop said that it was a pure and unfamiliar woman who helped us pay, but the shopkeeper of the Heavenly Fragrance restaurant said that it was an elegant scholar who helped us pay, and the owner of the tailor shop said that it was a scar-faced man with a fierce expression who helped us pay. Mu Mingda said, An unfamiliar woman, an elegant scholar, a scar-faced man? Are there so many people helping our Mu family? Mu Tianhe fell into deep thought. He couldn't remember who in Clearwater City would dare to go against the Sikong family and secretly help them under such circumstances. Perhaps these people have received favors from our Mu family and don't dare to reveal their identities for fear of Sikong Gaoming's revenge, so they chose to secretly help? Mu Mingda guessed. I keep having the feeling that someone is helping our Mu family. It's just that he sent different people to help in order to not let us find out. Mu Tianhe guessed. Actually, Mu Tianhe's guess wasn't far from the mark. However, no matter how hard they racked their brains, they would never have thought that the person helping them in the dark was Mu Yu, whose parents had been separated by Mu Tianhe many years ago. Father, Do you think it's that young friend Feng Mu who saved our lives back then? Mu Rongshuan asked. They all knew that Feng Mu was in the out-of-body stage. Although they didn't know why he left without saying goodbye. Under such circumstances, everyone in Clearwater City avoided the Mu family. The only person who could stand on the Mu family side was that Feng Mu. Mu Tian's side, I don't know if it's young friend Feng Mu, but he has no relationship with us, so there's no reason for him to help us. Furthermore, he left without saying goodbye because he didn't want to have anything to do with our Mu family and get himself into trouble. It shouldn't be him. Grandfather, do you think it's Big Brother Mu Yu who's helping us? Mu Xin asked cheerfully. Everyone in the mausoleum was frowning. Only Mu Xin was lively every day and didn't feel anything strange. In her eyes, it didn't matter where she lived. As long as she was with her family, it was good enough. When everyone heard the two words Mu Yu, they fell silent. Mu Yu was their hope, but it was also a person they didn't want to face. This was because they couldn't guarantee that Mu Yu would forgive Mu Tianhe for what he did back then. However, Mu Xin was still young. She didn't think too much and just said whatever came to her mind. However, Mu Hao shook his head. Xiao Xin, don't think about that Big Brother Mu Yu. He won't help us. According to the past, Mu Hao was the one who believed that Big Brother Mu Yu was the one who helped them. This was because he admired Mu Yu the most. However, today, Mu Hao unexpectedly told his sister not to think about that Big Brother Mu Yu. This was clearly abnormal. Xiao Hao, what's wrong? Don't you usually like to talk about Big Brother Mu Yu the most? Mu Rongxian understood his son the best. In the past, Mu Hao would always involve Mu Yu in everything. It was always Mu Yu's Big Brother 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 Mu Hao's expression was resolute. Father, I'm fine. I just don't want to rely on others anymore. That Big Brother Mu Yu has nothing to do with our Mu family. I will no longer blindly worship Big Brother Mu Yu in the future. Why do you think so? Mu Rongshuan was a little surprised. He didn't understand what caused his son to change. That day, Feng Mu told me that I have to be strong and not always think about relying on others. Moreover, if Big Brother Mu Yu knew about our Mu family situation, he might not help us because Big Brother Mu Yu. Mu Hao secretly glanced at Mu Tianhe. The words Mu Yu said to him before still echoed in his mind. He understood that his grandfather did something wrong to Mu Yu. If Mu Yu really came back, he would definitely not forgive his grandfather. When did Feng Mu say this to you? Mu Rongshuan became cautious. That day after the Gu family broke off the engagement, I met Feng Mu on the road. He told me to rely on myself and not rely on people I don't know. Only in this way can I protect everyone. Mu Hao clenched his fist and said. He had been cultivating day and night for the past few days in order to make himself stronger. Do you know where Feng Mu is now? Mu Rongshuan quickly asked. Mu Hao seriously said, Father, don't say that I don't know. Even if I knew, I wouldn't ask him for help. Feng Mu has already said that we have to rely on ourselves. Our Mu family can only rely on ourselves to have a future. Mu Rongshuan smiled and happily rubbed Mu Hao's head. He suddenly felt a sense of gratitude towards a young man, Feng Mu. Although Feng Mu left without saying goodbye, he had already saved his life in the desert. There was no need to blame him. And the biggest help Feng Mu gave them was that Mu Hao seemed to have grown up overnight. He no longer talked about Mu Yu every day. Difficulties were not the most frightening thing. What was frightening was that people did not know how to learn from difficulties. The Mu family's disaster this time was destructive, but it also allowed Mu Hao to truly grow up. Mu Tianhe looked at Mu Hao in a daze. Mu Hao's words had touched him. If Mu Yu comes back, he might not choose to help the Mu family. That's right. Why would Mu Yu help them? Originally, he felt that he had lost face and chose to separate Mu Zhixing and Zhu Qiuqi, causing Mu Yu to become an orphan. Now that the Mu family was about to be destroyed, he was still unwilling to put down his face to ask for someone else's protection. He brought his children and grandchildren to the cemetery to wait for death. Mr. Yin had clearly given him a chance, but he refused because of his face. Chapter 508. The moon hung high in the sky, illuminating the Mu family cemetery. Every now and then, a gust of wind would blow through the cemetery, causing the trees in the cemetery to sway slightly, emitting sharp, whistling sounds. It was eerie in the silent night. The cemetery was very quiet. Only the croaking of frogs could be heard, echoing in the cemetery along with the breeze. Muyu had been living in the cemetery with the Mu family for the past few days, but the Mu family had not noticed. He often silently watched the man who had fallen into oblivion, Mu Zhixing, who drank with hazy eyes. He did not know what to think of this man who had fallen into oblivion. Mu Zhixing rarely spent time with his family after coming to the cemetery. Instead, he spent most of his time in front of a grave, often sitting motionless for hours at a time. This grave was very simple. There were no ornate marble carvings or solemn tombstones. There was only a mound of dirt covered with weeds. In front of it was an old wooden tombstone with 3 words written on it, Zhu Qiuqi. This was the grave of Mu Yu's birth mother. This grave was completely different from the other graves of the Mu family ancestors. It did not have a solemn appearance, as if it had been hastily piled up with grass. There were no decorations. It stood out in the cemetery, as if it was not a part of the Mu family at all. The Mu family no longer had the money to buy wine for Mu Zhixing. But Mu Zhixing would go out alone every day, and when he returned, he would drink himself a jar of wine. No one knew where he got the money to buy wine, and no one had the time to care about him. When he returned, he would sit in front of Zhu Qiuqi's grave and drink wine, staring at the words on the tombstone in a daze. He would sleep here at night, and his 3 meals a day would be delivered by Mu Xen, who cared about 4th uncle the most. Muyu did not have any feelings for his birth father, because they had never interacted. Muyu often looked at Mu Zhixing like a passerby, and was unfamiliar with this man who was supposed to be close to him. In Muyu's heart, his father would always be withered Tri Chongqing, and not this drunk Mu Zhixing. The night wind rustled through the bushes in the cemetery. Heavy and slow footsteps came slowly along the path. Mu Tianhe's aged figure gradually appeared in Mu Yu's field of vision. His steps were filled with vicissitudes of life, and every step he took on the ground made one's heart ache. The Mu clan no longer existed. In just a few days, he had become very old, no longer in his usual spirited state. He walked to Jupiter's side and sat down. Mu Tianhe stared at Zhu Qiuqi's name, and a strange expression appeared on his old face. Unlike the other tombstones around, Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone only had 3 simple words written on it. There was no other description or identification. Muyu was lying on a thick branch of a poplar tree not far away, staring at Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone in a daze. The 3 of them just stared at the tombstone without saying a word. Lying in the grave was Mu Yu's mother, whom he had never met. Sitting in front of the tombstone were Mu Yu's father and grandfather. It was a very strange scene. Strange, but also seemed natural. After a long time, Mu Tianhe supported himself with his hands and stood up with difficulty. Mu Yu thought he was going to leave, but he suddenly knelt down in front of Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone. When he knelt down, even Mu Yu was stunned. Mu Tianhe actually knelt down in front of the dead Zhu Qiuqi. He was a person who valued his face more than his life. How could he kneel down in front of a daughter-in-law he didn't even acknowledge? Mu Yu looked at the somewhat stooped figure and suddenly felt an indescribable emotion from the bottom of his heart. Was that really the stubborn Mu Tianhe? Jupiter, its father's fault. Mu Tianhe's face was full of melancholy. If father didn't care so much about his face, you wouldn't be like this. Zhu Qiuqi was a good girl. Father shouldn't have separated you two from my face. Mu Tianhe looked up at the moon in the sky and sighed. Little Hao has always admired his older brother Mu Yu. But today he told me that he no longer hopes that Mu Yu can help our Mu family. He wants to rely on himself. Little Hao was such a young child, yet he knew how to give up on the things he clung to. Father, who has lived for so long, what else can I not let go of? Mu Tianhe's body trembled slightly. He still stared at his wife's tombstone and didn't turn to look at his father. He didn't look at the father he didn't acknowledge. Mu Yu quietly watched the two people from a distance. He watched the two people he didn't acknowledge as his family. Mu Tianhe buried his face in the shadows of the moonlight. No one could see his expression at this moment. The wind blew at the corners of his clothes, making them flutter. Mu Tianhe stared at the moon in the sky in a daze. His eyes became cloudy, like a helpless old man silently repenting for his actions. When he was young, he always wanted to save face. For the sake of face that wasn't necessary, he ruined his son's happiness with his own hands. He also broke up his son's family of 3. Even the grandson, who should have called him grandfather, had disappeared. After all, that was his grandson. But he didn't even know if it was a boy or a girl. He didn't even know if it was his own son. This was a laughable sin. For the sake of face, he took away a child's right to grow up in the arms of his parents. He knew that the true God's disciple was called Mu Yu and was very likely to be his grandson. But his pride in the past didn't allow him to seek help from this Mu Yu. Mu Hao was right. He had abandoned that child. Why should he help him now? Everything that happened to the Mu family today is because of me. I cared too much about face and did one wrong thing after another. I apologize to you. I've thought about it. Tomorrow I will go find Mr. Yin and start as a steward. I can't watch you suffer with me anymore. I should learn to let go. Surviving is the most important thing. He understood this point, but the Mu family had already been destroyed. Mu Tianhe slowly stood up. Standing up seemed to take a lot of effort. He was even a little out of breath. Mu Yu suddenly realized that Mu Tianhe was already so old. Mu Tianhe's back was bleak and old under the moonlight. The wind in the graveyard blew on his body, making his figure look very thin. It seemed like he would be blown to the ground in the next moment. This should be a hateful old man, but Mu Yu's heart gave birth to a strange feeling for him. Mu Tianhe, who had let go of his face, made Mu Yu's heart feel a little touched. Qiuqi's tombstone is too disharmonious. Find a time to change it. Set up the tombstone according to our Mu family style. It has to be the same as the surrounding tombstones. Mu Tianhe's voice was a little hoarse. Then he staggered away. His figure was very long under the moonlight, like a bamboo pole. He gradually disappeared at the end of the path. He had never acknowledged Zhu Qiuqi as his daughter-in-law because of his own face. He had allowed Zhu Qiuqi to be buried in the Mu family's graveyard only because he felt a little guilty. He had made a concession so that Zhu Qiuqi could be buried here. But he did not allow Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone to have the Mu family's mark like the other deceased members of the Mu family. He only allowed Mu Zhixing to engrave the words Zhu Qiuqi. So Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone had always been out of place with the other deceased members of the Mu family. Mu Tianhe suddenly felt that it was time to rectify this disharmony so that no special tombstones would appear in the graveyard. When Mu Tianhe came, Mu Zhixing was indifferent. But the moment Mu Tianhe knelt down, his body trembled slightly. And when Mu Tianhe said that Zhu Qiuqi's tombstone should be changed to the style of the Mu family, Mu Zhixing's face was full of tears. He knew that his father had finally acknowledged Zhu Qiuqi's identity, and he had waited for this moment for 18 years. Mu Tianhe had separated them. 18 years ago, Zhu Qiuqi had abandoned Mu Yu, who was almost 2 years old, and returned alone to find her husband. But not long after, she had died of depression. The disharmonious tombstone had existed for 18 years. For 18 years, Mu Tianhe had refused to rectify this disharmony. Until today, Mu Zhixing reached out and gently stroked the words on the tombstone. His body trembled uncontrollably. He seemed to be talking to himself, but it also seemed like he was talking to the tombstone. His voice sounded so desolate in the graveyard. In the past, when I drank, you would always angrily snatch my wine jar and not let me get drunk. Once I drank, you would always pull my ear and not let go. But now, I've been drinking for 20 years, and you have never snatched my wine jar again. I've been drunk for 20 years, and you still haven't pulled my ear. Why don't you care about me? Mu Zhixing murmured softly. Mu Zhixing was forced to leave his wife for 2 years, and he was drunk for 2 years. When Zhu Qiuqi returned, he thought that he would be able to be with his wife forever. But Zhu Qiuqi passed away soon after, and he was drunk for 18 years again. He had always imagined that Zhu Qiuqi would come and take care of him, but the girl he loved had already left. She was gone, and he could get drunk without restraint, but he could never sober up again. But when had he ever been drunk? I've always been sober. Ever since you left, I've drunk so much, but I've never been drunk. Because you won't let me get drunk. Everyone told me to wake up, but I've never been drunk. How can I be sober? Mu Zixing smiled foolishly. He had never been drunk, so how could he be sober? He didn't dare to get drunk because his wife wouldn't let him. But he had to drink, because only then would his wife control him. But after waiting for so many years, his wife couldn't control him anymore. But today, he suddenly understood something. I'll never touch wine again. Mu Zixing stood up and caressed the words. He has acknowledged the two of us. You are now my wife, a member of the Mu family. The Mu family should follow the Mu family's rules. There is no need for this wooden tablet to exist. The wooden tablet in Mu Zixing's hand suddenly turned to dust and scattered with the wind. He still refused to forgive Mu Tianhe and didn't even want to call him father. Wait for me here. Mu Zixing looked deeply at his wife's grave, then shot into the sky and left the cemetery, disappearing into the night. No one knew where he was going. He was going to clear his wife's name. Mu Yu looked at Mu Zixing's departing figure, then at Mu Tianhe's receding figure. He seemed to have crossed a hurdle in his heart. One was an irresponsible father, the other a prideful grandfather. He had always wanted to find an answer from these two, an answer that would make him act. Tonight, he seemed to have found it. Mu Yu, does this count as Mu Tianhe giving you an explanation? Dragon Tongue asked. Mu Yu didn't answer. He just lay comfortably on the treetop. The branches around him swayed gently and happily around his body. He looked up at the bright moon in the sky and realized that it was especially round tonight. Explanation? What was there to explain? The bright moon shone in the Mu family cemetery, dispelling the haze and bringing some life to the silent cemetery. Mu Yu reached out to touch a withered leaf. The withered leaf that should have fallen suddenly turned green. It was full of life, celebrating its rebirth in the night wind. Mu Yu smiled. If he could give a withered leaf another chance at life, he could also make a destroyed family rise again. Chapter 509. On the second day, Mu Zixing still hadn't returned. No one knew where he went. Mu Tianhe had already decided to go to the Mu residence and become Mr. Yan's steward. However, his clothes were too luxurious. It was obvious that he was an old man. It didn't look like something a steward should wear. Hence, he borrowed Uncle Mu's clothes. Mu Tianhe felt a little awkward wearing a simple steward's clothes. Father, are you really going to do this? Mu Rongshuan's eyes were red. What his son was most afraid of was that when they grew up, they still needed their father to run around for them, and they couldn't do anything. Although they had the ability, no one in Clearwater City was willing to hire them because of Sikong Gaoming's threat. Now, only the mysterious Mr. Yin dared to go against Sikong Gaoming. Father, let's discuss this with Mr. Yin. I'll do this for you. I can be Mr. Yan's steward. You don't have to work so hard. Mu Mingda was also very opposed to this. However, he was also very helpless. He ran around the entire Clearwater City for a few days, but still couldn't find a job. When people saw that he was from the Mu clan, they rejected him like he was the plague. Mu Tianhe smiled and said, Mr. Yin only wants an out-of-body stage steward. He doesn't want a nascent soul stage like you. It's fine. I've been the master of the Mu residence for a lifetime. What's so difficult about being a steward? Master, why don't I go with you? I know that everyone in the Mu residence can take care of you. Uncle Mu said worriedly. Uncle Mu used to be the steward of the Mu residence. He knew everything about the Mu residence like the back of his hand. Being a steward was a meticulous and cumbersome job. He had to take care of all the small things around him, including the flowers and plants. He was worried that his master was used to a life of luxury and couldn't do such a job. Uncle Mu, if you go, what will Mr. Yin think of us? A steward with a steward? Mu Tianhe patted Uncle Mu's shoulder and said, Don't worry, you guys will stay here. If Mr. Yin is willing to give me the steward's job, I'll borrow some money from Mr. Yin to buy a small courtyard. We won't have to fight with our ancestors in the future. Mu Tian's tone sounded a little sad. Who would want to live in the cemetery if they weren't forced to? Mu Hao held Mu Tian's hand tightly and said, "Grandfather, don't worry. I will definitely become stronger in the future so that the people of Clearwater City won't dare to look down on us. When that time comes, Grandfather, you won't have to suffer anymore." Mu Tianhe rubbed Mu Hao's head and revealed a gratified smile. He looked at the members of the Mu clan and said, "Mingda and Ji Tong, when I'm not around, the two of you have to protect everyone. Don't let any accidents happen, understand?" "Understood, Father." Mu Mingda and Mu Ji both sighed. Mu Tianhe wore Uncle Mu's robes and left the cemetery, heading for the Mu clan. The current Mu clan was no longer surnamed Mu, but Yin. When he walked out of the cemetery, there was a large group of people outside pointing at him. If it was in the past, he would have been very angry, but now he calmly accepted the ridicule of others. The gate of the Wood Mansion was still as imposing as before. The two words Wood Mansion were still written on the vermilion gate. The current Mu clan was a little cold and cheerless. The gate was covered in dust, as if no one had cleaned it for a long time. In the past, Mu Tianhe would have been very angry if he saw such a situation. He liked everything to be clean and tidy, not dirty and messy. However, he suddenly thought that if he were to become the manager here, then he would have to clean everything himself. Mu Tianhe put away the rueful expression on his face and tidied up his attire. Then he walked up and knocked twice on the door. "Mr. Yin, Mu Tianhe requests an audience." The vermilion gate opened automatically, and Mu Tianhe walked in. When he returned to his home, he felt that everything was so familiar yet strange. Now, everything in the Mu clan had been sold, leaving only an empty courtyard covered in fallen leaves. He walked towards the hall with ease. At this moment, Mu Yu, who was covered in array patterns, was already waiting for his grandfather. "Mr. Yin." Mu Tianhe bowed. Mu Yu suddenly felt that it was quite funny that his grandfather was so respectful to him for no reason. It was very strange. Now, even though he already considered himself a member of the Mu clan, he still did not want to expose his identity. After all, if a true God's disciple appeared in Clearwater City, it would bring him a lot of trouble. "What brings you here, family head Mu?" Mu Yu asked deliberately. "I have thought about Mr. Yan's suggestion a few days ago. I feel that Mr. Yan's words are very reasonable. Mr. Yan, the position of manager in your residence should still be vacant, right?" Mu Tianhe probed. "Why? Mu family's patriarch, have you thought it through? Are you willing to condescend to be a steward of my mansion?" Mu Yu's mouth curved into a smile. When Mu Tianhe came here, he really treated this old man as his grandfather. However, he still wanted to tease his grandfather. After all, he had become an orphan since he was 2 years old because of this old man. Teasing him now would be a good way to vent his anger. "Mr. Yin, you must be joking. I am no longer the family head Mu. If Mr. Yin does not mind, I am willing to accept Mr. Yan's suggestion and be a manager for Mr. Yin. I will help Mr. Yin take care of all the trivial matters in the Yin residence," Mu Tianhe said earnestly. Mu Yu pondered for a moment and pretended to speak like an otherworldly expert. "Is that so? Have you really thought it through? Being this Yan's steward won't bury your identity. How much salary do you have in mind?" "Salary?" Mu Tianhe actually forgot about this matter. He laughed awkwardly and remembered that he used to give Uncle Mu a salary of 5,000 spirit stones a month. After thinking about it, he was an out-of-body cultivator after all. At the very least, he should not be less than Uncle Mu, right? "Mr. Yin, may I be so bold as to ask for 10,000 spirit stones as a salary?" Mu Tianhe probed. "What, 10,000 a day?" Mu Yu asked. Mu Tianhe was shocked. 10,000 a day was a bit too much. He quickly said, "Mr. Yin must be joking. It is 10,000 a month. 10,000 a month. 10,000 a month is too much of a waste of talent. I will give you 10,000 a day. If you don't have any objections, you can sign these 2 contracts." Mu Yu was rich and overbearing. In any case, he was the one who hired his grandfather. How could he be stingy to his grandfather? Let alone 10,000 a day. Even if it was 100,000 a day, Mu Yu would not frown. At worst, he would just sell a few more pills. Right now, he had several hundred pills in his pocket. The lowest quality was 5th grade. Just selling a few would be enough. Right now, the Mu family was short of money. Muyu happened to be ridiculously rich and didn't know how to spend money. This was the perfect way to help the Mu family. Mu Tianhe opened his mouth. An indescribable shock appeared on his old face. In the past, if he earned 100,000 a day, he wouldn't even blink. But now, he was a down-and-out member of the Mu family. At this time of crisis, someone was willing to spend 10,000 spirit stones a day to hire him. This really made him feel flattered. He looked at the indenture on the table and was stunned for a moment. What? 10,000 a day is too little? Then 20,000 a day. Muyu said. No. Mu Tianhe was completely stunned. How could his salary be increased while he was stunned? Mr. Yin was so generous? One had to know that their Mu family still owed more than $1 million in debt. If it was 20,000 a day, then Mu Tianhe would only need to work for a few months to pay off the debt. You're not satisfied with 20,000? Then 30,000 a day. Muyu really didn't stop until he was shocked to death. He laughed until his stomach hurt under the cover of the formation pattern. It was quite fun to tease his grandfather like this. No. 10,000 a day is enough. 10,000 a day is enough. Mu Tianhe hurriedly said. He wasn't a greedy person. There were some things that he knew his limits. At this time, if he could find a job in Clearwater City, it would be enough to pay off the debt. All right, 10,000 a day then. Sign the contract. From now on, you will be the manager of the Yen estate. Muyu pointed at the contract on the table. Mu Tianhe picked up the 2 contracts. Looking at the flamboyant handwriting, he suddenly felt that it was familiar. This was because his handwriting style was similar. He glanced at Muyu in confusion. He didn't understand why Mr. Yan's handwriting was so similar to his. Then he scanned each contract in detail. They were all ordinary employment relationships. There was nothing wrong with them. Anyway, it's just a contract. Why are you looking at it so carefully? It's not like it's binding. Muyu smiled. Yes. Mu Tianhe didn't hesitate any longer. He hurriedly infused 2 drops of his blood into the contract. Then, he respectfully handed one to Muyu and kept his own contract. Old servant Mu Tianhe greets old master. Mu Tianhe wanted to kneel down and pay his respects. When he said the words, old servant, there was a trace of struggle in his heart. Even when he knelt down, his body trembled. Muyu didn't dare to accept his grandfather's greeting. A powerful force stopped Mu Tianhe from kneeling down. Making his grandfather kneel down to him was something that he would be struck by lightning. He hurriedly said, "There's no need for unnecessary formalities. Don't call me old master in the future. Just call me Mr. Yin." Yes, old servant understands. Mu Tianhe felt the terrifying aura from Mr. Yin and understood that the person in front of him wasn't someone he could afford to offend. However, he was also happy because Mr. Yin didn't make him kneel down and pay his respects. Clearly, he had preserved his self-esteem. At the same time, he understood that with Mr. Yin here, Sikong Gaoming wouldn't do anything to the Mu clan in the future. After hesitating for a while, Mu Tianhe said, "Mr. Yin, old servant has a request. I wonder if Mr. Yin can agree? Tell me, this old servant wants to ask Mr. Yin for an advance of my salary. I want to find a place to stay so that my family can move out of the cemetery." Mu Tianhe said sincerely, "About the advance of your salary? Mr. Yin, please help this old servant. This old servant is extremely grateful." Mu Tianhe thought that Muyu wouldn't agree and hurriedly said, "There's no need to find a place to stay. In the future, you can bring your family to live in this residence. My residence is so big and empty. You don't think it's too much for your Mu clan to live in. It just so happens that I need to go out and do something. I might not be back for a long time. Help me tidy up the residence first. I hope that when I come back, there won't be any problems." Muyu threw the million-spirit stone black jade pendant to Mu Tianhe. "These are the funds for your work. Find someone to replace the old furniture. Decorate it however you want. You used to be the owner of this place. You should know best how to decorate this place to make it more comfortable. That's right. In order to prevent people from coming to collect debts from you and messing up my residence, take these spirit stones and pay off all the money you owe. As for the rest of the money, you can do as you see fit. Mu added. Mu Tianhe took the jade pendant and probed it with his divine sense. He was stunned for a moment. Mr. Yin, 5 million? Isn't this too much? Chapter 510. Mu Yu said that when Mu Tianhe put down his pride, he would be a part of the Mu family. Mu Tianhe was willing to be a steward of the Yin residence. This meant that Mu Yu was returning the Mu residence to his grandfather. Mu Yu naturally wouldn't choose to live in the Mu residence as Mr. Yin. He didn't have any sense of belonging here, and he didn't want to disturb the Mu family's original lives. Therefore, he let them live like this. As long as Mr. Yin didn't return to the Mu residence, Mu Tianhe and the rest wouldn't feel uncomfortable. Their lives would continue. Mu Tianhe brought his family back to the Mu residence from the cemetery. This caused a huge commotion in Clearwater City. Everyone thought that the Mu residence had changed hands and that the Mu family couldn't do anything about it. Who would have thought that the Mu family would return to their ancestral home? However, everyone soon found out that the number one family in Clearwater City, Mu Tianhe, had chosen to be a steward of the Mu residence. The Mu residence no longer had the surname Mu. In less than 2 days, the signboard of the Mu residence changed to Yin residence. No one knew the background of this Mr. Yin. They only knew that he dared to challenge Sikong Gaoming at the auction house, and even snatched the Mu residence from Sikong Gaoming's hands. Now, he even took in the Mu family and made Mu Tianhe the steward of the Yin residence. One must know that Mu Tianhe was famous in Clearwater City for being a prideful person. However, a prideful person like him was willing to lower himself to Mr. Yin and become Mr. Yan's servant. This was truly shocking. Many people in Clearwater City guessed that this Mr. Yin had a huge background. Some even guessed that he was from Stargate. On the 6th of June, Sikong Chiwen and Tian Buwei would battle in Clearwater City. This was a battle between a dark horse with the potential of an extreme immortal and the young master of Stargate. Since Tian Buwei had accepted the battle, he would definitely come to Clearwater City to prepare. Clearwater City's Mu family and Sikong family had deep conflicts. Therefore, Stargate chose the Mu family to provoke the Sikong family. Everyone believed that Mr. Yin was a member of Stargate, so it made sense that Mu Tianhe had joined Stargate. The reputation of the Heavenly Star sect was too big. Therefore, during this period of time, no one dared to cause trouble for the Mu clan. The Mu clan had finally paid off their debt. More than 10 days passed, and the Mu clan seemed to have returned to normal. Mu Yu wanted to see how the Mu clan was doing. However, he didn't appear as Mr. Yin to avoid making the Mu family feel uncomfortable. After some thought, he decided to go as Feng Mu. When Mu Yu arrived at the Mu mansion, he found that the Mu mansion still hadn't recruited anyone. Only the members of the Mu family were busy taking care of their own manners. The members of the Mu family were all dressed like servants, but their expressions were very peaceful. They didn't have the sad faces of the past. Even Mu Tianhe was personally cleaning the courtyard. Don't be lazy, Jitong. If you dare to be lazy, I'll teach you a lesson later. Mu Tianhe scolded with a stern face. You have to make sure that the Yin mansion is clean at all times. You can't have any dust. Yes, father. Mu Jitong was cleaning the windows with a rag. Grandpa, that Mr. Yin hasn't come back for so long. Why do we have to clean every day? Mu Xine asked, puzzled. She was a child, so she didn't participate in the cleaning work. She just watched her elders busy themselves every day. Mu Tianhe looked at Mu Xine and smiled. Little Xine, Mr. Yin gave the Mu family a job and left the entire mansion to us. Naturally, we have to do everything seriously. He helped us pay off our debt, so we don't have to worry about going out in the future. He also took us in, so we don't have to eat and sleep in the mausoleum. Naturally, we have to know how to repay his kindness. Do you understand? Mu Xine nodded. She tilted her head and asked, Then why can't Mr. Yin see us doing this every day? Mu Tianhe rubbed little Xine's head and said lovingly, It doesn't matter if Mr. Yin can see us or not. What's important is that we have to correct our attitude and do things. We didn't do the cleaning for Mr. Yin. We did it for ourselves. What kind of people do what kind of things? This is our job. Whether or not anyone sees us, we have to do it well. We have to do it with a clear conscience. Only then can we live up to Mr. Yan's trust in us. Muyu sat on the roof and watched the busy Mu family. He suddenly realized that his grandfather was indeed a responsible person. Although his grandfather was prideful and old-fashioned, he was very attentive and knew how to be grateful. Muyu wanted to see such an elder. After experiencing this ordeal, the Mu family should have learned a lot. However, Muyu still didn't see Mu Zixing's figure. Master, Mr. Yan's room is cleaned. Uncle Mu walked over and said, Uncle Mu, what should you call me? Mu Tianhe asked with a frown. Lord Steward. Uncle Mu still felt that this title was awkward. In the past, people had always called him Steward. In order to differentiate, Uncle Mu decided to call Mu Tianhe Lord Steward. Mr. Yan's room is cleaned. Have you changed the bedsheets? Mu Tianhe asked. Yes, Lord Steward. Uncle Mu said. Mr. Yan still has a room? Muyu couldn't help but ask. The Mu family members looked up and saw that someone was sitting on the roof. Big brother Feng Mu. Mu Xian jumped up happily. Muyu turned around and landed in front of Mu Tianhe. Senior Mu, long time no see. Muyu cupped his hands in greeting. Mu Tianhe wasn't as enthusiastic as before. Instead, he frowned and said, Little friend Feng Mu, this is no longer the Mu family's house. It is Mr. Yan's residence. Please don't trespass. I am Mr. Yan. Muyu rolled her eyes. She didn't expect that her arrival wouldn't be welcomed. She was really helpless. However, Mu Tianhe really lowered his status. As the steward, he couldn't sit idly by when Muyu trespassed into the Yan estate. Senior, please forgive my rudeness. I was just curious. I didn't mean any harm. Please don't blame me. Muyu hurriedly said. Little friend Feng Mu, if there's nothing else, please leave the Yan estate. As the steward of the Yan estate, I have the responsibility to protect the Yan estate. Mu Tianhe said seriously. Great. My grandfather is really a competent steward. Feng Mu, leave quickly. Otherwise, I'll ask you to leave. Mu Hao ran over from somewhere with a bucket of water in his hand. His tone was very unfriendly. Muyu looked at this silly young man and thought of something. He asked, Little Hao, don't tell me you've changed your worship to Mr. Yan? So what? Then what about your big brother Muyu? Big brother Muyu isn't a member of our Mu family. You were the one who told me that I can't fantasize about outsiders. Mu Hao said seriously. Muyu was stunned. Then what about me? What about your beloved big brother Feng Mu? I've never worshipped you. Can you stop being so narcissistic? You're not on the same level as those two. Mu Hao said disdainfully. Muyu opened his mouth. He felt as if he had shot himself in the foot. The little fan who used to praise Muyu every day was no longer a fan. Muyu actually felt a trace of sadness in his heart. Why are you always so fickle? Can't you be a bit more resolute? Muyu couldn't help but say. However, he comforted himself. At least Mu Hao still worshipped Mr. Yan. And that Mr. Yan was him. I'm not fickle. In fact, I don't worship Mr. Yan. Mr. Yan is our savior. I'm just thankful to him. I still admire the true God's disciple. It's just that I don't see him as a brother of our Mu family. What I want to learn is the true God's disciple's indomitable spirit. As for you, Mu Hao sized up Muyu. I'm also your savior. Muyu felt that this idiot was asking for a beating. Saving me is one thing, but now that you're trespassing in Yin Manor, I have to chase you out. Mu Hao raised the bucket in his hand. If you don't leave, I'll splash water on you. Muyu felt that it was hard to defend himself. He had come with good intentions to inspect their work, but he was actually chased out by the Mu family. He shook his head. Forget it. I'll just bear with it for now. When I leave Clearwater City, I'll tell these people my identity. I'll anger this idiot to death. Little Xian, let's go. Let's go out and play, shall we? Muyu felt like he was a bad brother who kidnapped a child. But then again, Mu Xian was indeed his sister. Grandpa, can I go out and play with Brother Feng Mu? Mu Xian blinked her big eyes and asked. Don't worry, Senior Mu. I won't do anything to little Xian. She'll be fine with me, Muyu hurriedly said. Mu Tianhe hesitated for a moment. He knew that Feng Mu had helped their Mu family before, so he probably wouldn't do anything to little Xian. Then I'll go too. I can't let little Xian be alone with a man. Mu Hao's responsibility as an elder brother came out again. You just stay here and work. Who's going to take you? Mu Yu made a provocative gesture at Mu Hao. Then, he left with Mu Xian. Mu Hao was so angry that he stomped his feet. Mu Yu held Mu Xian's hand and walked on the bustling street. He couldn't help but ask, Little Xian, I heard your grandpa say that you've prepared a room for Mr. Yin. What's going on? Oh, that room is the best room in the entire Yin Manor. It used to be Grandpa's room, but now Grandpa said that the entire Mu family belongs to Mr. Yin. So, Mr. Yin can stay in that room when he comes back. Grandpa asked Uncle Mu to clean the room every day. He also asked Uncle Mu to keep the room ventilated so that Mr. Yin has a place to stay when he comes back. Mu Xian held a big stick of candied haws in her hand and ate happily. Xiao Shuai held 2 big sticks in his hand. Mu Yu was moved. He didn't expect his grandpa to treat Mr. Yin as his master. Fortunately, Mu Yu didn't go back as Mr. Yin. Otherwise, he might feel uncomfortable talking to the Mu family. Mu Yu didn't want his grandpa to bow to him. He would be struck by lightning. Then where do you live? Mu Yu curiously asked. Grandpa brought us to live in the courtyard where the Mu family's servants used to live. It's actually very spacious. There used to be hundreds of servants in the Mu family. Now, it's just a few of us living there. There's nothing bad about it, Mu Xian said with a smile. Live in the servants' courtyard? Chapter 511. At the Sikong family. The Sikong family's courtyard was no smaller than the Mu family's ancestral mansion. It was extremely luxurious and had truly earned the title of the #1 family in Clearwater City. Everything in the house was relatively precious, and there were all sorts of antiques. Sikong Gaoming loved luxury. With his son backing him up, no one in Clearwater City dared to disrespect him. However, Sikong Gaoming's face was very gloomy these 2 days because he heard that the Mu family had moved back to the Mu family's ancestral mansion. Even though that mansion no longer belonged to the Mu family, he was still very unhappy. This was because he had always wanted to force Mu Tianhe into a dead end. Sikong Gaoming used to be a subordinate of the Mu family. In the past, Sikong Gaoming trembled with fear and humility in front of Mu Tianhe. Later on, when his son became successful, he began to suppress the Mu family without restraint, wanting to destroy the Mu family. He used to work for the Mu family and was very familiar with the Mu family's business. Therefore, if he wanted to rise up, it was naturally the fastest way to snatch the Mu family's business. As long as the Mu family existed, the word forget would always be a thorn in his heart. Therefore, he couldn't wait to remove this thorn. When a Mu family moved into the cemetery, he thought that the Mu family was done for. Therefore, he didn't immediately make things difficult for the Mu family. This was because the Mu family had become a laughingstock in Clearwater City. He wanted the Mu family to perish under the ridicule of others. However, he didn't expect Mu Tianhe to actually bring his own people back to the Mu residence. Moreover, it was rumored that he had the backing of Stargate. He couldn't afford to offend people from Stargate. Even if his son had potential, he was only one person. Stargate was one of the 8 most powerful gates in the cultivation world. How could a small family like him dare to challenge them? Moreover, the young master of Stargate, who was said to be disliked by the heavens, had a cultivation level no weaker than his son's. He couldn't interfere in a battle between immortals. These few days, he resisted the urge to find trouble with the Mu family because he wanted to find out more about the mysterious Mr. Yan's background. He wanted to see if he was really from Stargate. Old Master, I've already made some detailed inquiries. The people from Stargate haven't arrived in Clearwater City yet. Who exactly is that Mr. Yin? No one has seen him before. I asked Hui Bea of $1 Million Trading Company, but she only said that she has no comment. A middle-aged Xiozha knelt on one knee in front of Sikong Gaoming and said respectfully. This middle-aged cultivator had a tall and sturdy build, and his cultivation was actually at the 3rd heavenly layer of the out-of-aperture stage. Out-of-body stage cultivators were already considered top-notch experts in Clearwater City. Even the clan leaders of Clearwater City were only at the out-of-body stage. Sikong Gaoming was only at the 9th heavenly layer of the nascent soul stage, but he had an out-of-body stage cultivator do things for him. Naturally, this person was someone his son had found from outside Clearwater City. Sikong Gaoming also had a masked man behind him. His cultivation was at the 5th celestial stage of out-of-aperture realm. One was at the 3rd firmament of out-of-body stage, while the other was at the 5th firmament of out-of-body stage. Chuan won't be back until the day after tomorrow. I can't wait for him. That Mr. Yin is most likely a cover created by the Mu clan. Mu Tianhe is a cunning old fox. He must have made up such a person to scare me. He changed the Mu residence to the Yin residence and pretended to be the steward of the Yin residence. Is he planning to use this method to deceive everyone? Dream on. Sikong Gaoming said angrily. Other than Huai Beiya, no one in Clearwater City had seen who Mr. Yin was. Sikong Gaoming had never seen Mr. Yin before, so he suspected that this was Mu Tianhe's scheme. He guessed that Mu Tianhe wanted to rely on a fake expert to scare off all the enemies who wanted to harm the Mu clan, especially to intimidate Sikong Gaoming. If Mr. Yin had appeared in the Mu mansion, then Sikong Gaoming might have been afraid. However, Mr. Yin was nowhere to be found in the Mu mansion. Moreover, the Mu family had returned to their ancestral home as if nothing had happened. This made Sikong Gaoming suspicious. He had never dared to do anything to the Mu clan in the Yin residence because his son had left Clearwater City. If that Mr. Yin really existed and could subdue Mu Tianhe, his cultivation would naturally not be low. However, he had just received a letter from his son. His son would return to Clearwater City the day after tomorrow. Master, let's wait for Master to return first. The middle-aged cultivator at the 3rd firmament of out-of-body realm was called Go Zhengyang. The other masked cultivator at the 5th firmament of out-of-body realm was called Lu Shixin. The two of them had always called Sikong Chiwen their master. No, I can't take this lying down. Let's go to the Mu residence now. Since that Mr. Yin is not in the Mu residence, let's go kill Mu Tianhe today. Even if Mr. Yin finds out tomorrow, my son will be back. Why should we be afraid of him? Sikong Gaoming said fiercely, the two of you, come with me to find trouble with the Mu clan now. Yes, master. Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin looked at each other. A red light flashed in their eyes, but they did not say anything. Every day, Mu Tianhe would instruct the Mu clan to spend 4 hours cleaning up the Yin residence before they would start to deal with other matters. Now that they had the funds from Mr. Yin, other than the 1 million that they spent to repay their debts, they still had some spirit stones left to buy new furniture and decorations in the Yin residence. However, they could not just sit around and live off their previous savings. Thus, Mu Mingda and his 2 brothers would continue to look for things to do every day. Now that the mysterious Mr. Yin might be related to Stargate, many people no longer dared to deliberately make things difficult for the Mu clan. Mu Tianhe recorded all the spirit stone expenses clearly in an account book. He did not want to make a mess of the accounts and forbade the Mu clan from casually squandering. Father, then we will go out. You guys rest at home. Little Hao, you have to cultivate properly. Mu Rongshuan and his 2 brothers were preparing to go out and find things to do. Now that they had some capital, they could start a small business and make the Mu clan big again. However, just as Mu Mingda and his brothers reached the door was suddenly blasted open. Then 2 terrifying auras rushed in and sent Mu Mingda and his brothers flying out. Who is it? Mu Tianhe angrily rebuked. His figure flashed as he caught his 3 sons. However, the huge impact still sent him flying. He retreated to a corner before stabilizing his body. Mu Tianhe, I trust you have been well since we last met. Sikong Gaoming's sinister figure slowly walked in from the door with a hypocritical smile on his face. Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin, 2 out-of-body stage cultivators, followed behind Sikong Gaoming. Just now, they were the ones who sent Mu Rongshuan and his 2 brothers flying. Mu Tianhe's expression changed as he vigilantly looked at Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin. These 2 people's cultivations were higher than his. If they really fought, he would definitely not be their opponent. He coldly snorted and berated Sikong Gaoming, this is the Yin residence. What is the meaning of trespassing? Yin residence? Hee. Mu Tianhe, you old fool, you are really cunning. So what if I trespass into your Yin residence? If you have the ability, then get that Mr. Yin to come out. I want to ask Mr. Yin for advice. Sikong Gaoming viciously stared at Mu Tianhe. Sikong Gaoming, how can you offend Mr. Yan's dignity? Please go back. Mu Tianhe's heart slightly sank. He already knew that Sikong Gaoming would come to cause trouble, but he did not expect that Sikong Gaoming would actually bring two out-of-body stage cultivators. Mr. Yin had not appeared since they parted more than 10 days ago. No one knew where he went. Sikong Gaoming deliberately came to cause trouble today. The two guard behind him had higher cultivations than Mu Tianhe. With Mu Tianhe's cultivation, it was impossible for him to block the two. You think you can scare me by casually fabricating a Mr. Yin? You really think I can't see through your petty tricks? I will send your Mu family to heaven right now. I want to see if that Mr. Yin will stand up for you. Sikong Gaoming sneered. Behind him, Go Xingyang's figure was as fast as lightning as he grabbed at Mu Mingda. Impudent. Mu Tianhe angrily stood in front of Mu Mingda and met Go Xingyang's palm head-on. Mu Tianhe's complexion suddenly changed. A strange force invaded his body from his palm, causing his blood and qi to become unstable. He was unable to completely dissolve the strange force and was directly sent flying, smashing into the stone table beside him. Looking at Go Xingyang, he did not even move. Father, are you all right? Mu Mingda and the other two hurriedly rushed over to support Mu Tianhe while glaring at Sikong Gaoming. A trace of blood flowed out from the corner of Mu Tianhe's mouth. He looked at Go Xingyang in horror. The other party's strength was beyond his imagination. Just one palm was enough to injure him. Sikong Gaoming, what do you want? My Mu family has already been destroyed. You still won't let us go? Mu Tianhe angrily said. No. Your Mu family hasn't been completely destroyed. Your Mu family's ancestral home is still here. I've already said that my son has taken a fancy to your Mu family's ancestral home and wants to use it as his backyard. If you know what's good for you, immediately pack up your things and scram. If you live among the piles of corpses again, I'll spare your lives. Otherwise, I'll directly kill you so that you won't even have the chance to live among the piles of corpses. Sikong Gaoming fiercely said. Sikong Gaoming, now that this house belongs to Mr. Yin, it's no longer our Mu family's residence. Our Mu family only works for Mr. Yin. Don't go too far. Mu Tianhe clenched his fists. Don't use Mr. Yin to scare me. What bullshit, Mr. Yin? If he wants this house back, he can come and get it from me. This place already belongs to me, Sikong Gaoming. I want to see what kind of background this Mr. Yin has. Sikong Gaoming said. With a severed soul stage son supporting him, it was natural for him to seize someone else's ancestral home. Mu Tianhe stood up and said, as the steward of Mr. Yan's residence, Mr. Yin left the entire Yin estate to me to manage. I have the responsibility to protect this Yin estate. If you want to invade the Yin estate, you'll have to step over my dead body. I, Mu Tianhe, have never been a coward who's afraid of death. I'm a loyal person who does loyal things. I'm not as heartless and unscrupulous as you, doing things that go against your loyalty. Mu Tianhe's words seemed to have stepped on Sikong Gaoming's tail. Sikong Gaoming's face twisted. He was originally groomed by Mu Tianhe, but he betrayed Mu Tianhe and seized the Mu family's property. He was originally a disloyal and unrighteous person. Now, no one in Clearwater City dared to say the word loyalty in front of him. Anything related to loyalty seemed to be mocking him. Loyalty? Sikong Gaoming's mouth suddenly curved into a strange arc. He reached out to grab Mu Hao. Mu Tianhe was shocked and hurriedly went to protect Mu Hao. However, Go Xingyang's body was as fast as lightning. He struck Mu Tianhe's chest with his palm. The terrifying spiritual energy overwhelmed Mu Tianhe. Mu Tianhe crashed into a tree in the courtyard and fell to the ground. I'll fight it out with you. Mu Mingda and the other two rushed towards Sikong Gaoming. However, LV Shishin, who was behind Sikong Gaoming, only snorted coldly. The three of them were shocked to find that they couldn't move. "Let go of my grandson!" Mu Tianhe spat out a mouthful of blood and roared in grief and indignation. Chapter 512. Let go of me, you bastard! Mu Hao struggled to break free from Sikong Gaoming's grasp, but Sikong Gaoming was a ninth heavenly layer nascent soul stage cultivator. Mu Hao's strength was not worth mentioning in front of him. "What do you want?" Mu Tianhe anxiously looked at Mu Hao, who was being held in the air by Sikong Gaoming. Mu Hao tightly covered his neck with his face flushed red. Sikong Gaoming stared at Mu Tianhe and viciously said, "Mu Tianhe, I remember that you used to regard your face as more important than your life. I don't believe that you are willing to be someone else's housekeeper. You have a good plan, fabricating a fake Mr. Yin to make others think that you have given up your dignity. If you think you can fool me like this, then you underestimate me too much. Mr. Yin saved my Mu family. My life belongs to Mr. Yin. This house is also Mr. Yan's. You trespassed into Mr. Yan's residence. Mr. Yin will definitely not forgive you." Mu Tianhe struggled to stand up. "Mr. Yin? Oomph. If Mr. Yin really exists, then why did he show up now? I don't believe that you will bow and scrape in front of others unless you obediently kneel in front of me and kowtow and beg for mercy. Let me see if you really don't care about your face. If you don't beg for mercy, then I will kill your descendants one by one, starting with your grandson," Sikong Gaoming said with a smile. "Sikong Gaoming, don't go too far." Mu Tianhe trembled with anger. Letting him bow his head in front of Mr. Yin was already a big concession, but how could he kowtow and beg for mercy in front of Sikong Gaoming? "Grandpa, even if we die, we will not beg for mercy from a villain who has no loyalty. Grandpa, I'm not afraid of death." Mu Hao squeezed these words out of his teeth with difficulty. Even though Mu Hao was caught by Sikong Gaoming, his eyes were still full of determination. There was no fear or greed for life. "Little Hao," Mu Tianhe clenched his fists. No matter how strong he was, hearing his grandson's words made him feel sad. Mu Hao was originally a sensible child, but he had to suffer this ordeal with him. As the head of the family, he couldn't protect his descendants. In front of Sikong Gaoming's coercion, he had no ability to resist. "Little Hao." Mu Rongshuan's face was already covered in tears. He was a father, and seeing his own son being grabbed by the other party, he was powerless. He knew that Sikong Gaoming was a vicious and merciless person. It was impossible for him to let the Mu family go. Rather than being humiliated to death by the other party, it was better for them to die with dignity. Mu Rongshuan revealed a sad smile and said, "Little Hao, you're right. We'd rather die standing than live kneeling." Following that, Mu Rongshuan turned his head and looked at Mu Tianhe. "Father, we will not kneel to a treacherous villain. Would you rather die standing than live kneeling?" Mu Tianhe murmured these words. Back then, he had always taught his children and grandchildren to have a backbone. Both of them remembered his words. But now, if they really listened to this sentence, then the Mu family might really be wiped out. He already didn't know how to choose. Back then, for the sake of his so-called face, he chose to break up the family on planet Muzha. Now, for the sake of his backbone, would he let the entire Mu family die with him? From a moment he chose to leave the cemetery and become Mr. Yan's butler. He knew that he could no longer blindly harm his children and grandchildren for the sake of his own face. Now that the lives of his grandson and son were in his hands, he had to make a choice. "If I kneel down and beg for mercy, will you let them go?" Mu Tianhe asked with a pale face. Sikong Gaoming smiled viciously. "As long as you kneel down and beg for mercy, I'll chase your children and grandchildren out of Clearwater City without harming their lives." "Grandfather, don't!" Mu Hao shouted in horror. "Father, don't!" Mu Mingda and the rest also shouted. "We're not afraid of death." Mu Tianhe shook his head and smiled bitterly. "You're not afraid of death, but I don't want the Mu family to die. I've already destroyed the foundation left behind by my ancestors. If I can't even protect your lives, then how can I face my ancestors in the underworld? Father, Didn't you tell us that a person must have backbone and dignity? Mu Jitong said with grief and indignation. For the sake of my face, I've already made a mistake 20 years ago. I can't make another mistake. The Mu family can't die. Mu Tianhe was inconsolable. No, grandfather, our Mu family won't die. We still have Big Brother Mu Yu and Xiao Xian. Feng Mu will protect Xiao Xian. They will definitely avenge us. If you kneel down, I won't acknowledge you as my grandfather anymore. Mu Hao was almost unable to speak. His voice was getting weaker and weaker. Xiao Hao. Mu Tianhe clenched his fists and sighed to the sky. He could put down his pride and work for others for the Mu family. That wasn't losing his dignity because it was an employer-employee relationship. But he definitely wouldn't abandon his dignity for the sake of survival. Mu Hao's words made him make up his mind. Mu Tianhe's eyes flickered with fury. He looked at Xikong Gaoming and said, Xikong Gaoming, kill all of us. If my grandson isn't afraid of death, why would I kneel to you? You're a person who doesn't speak of loyalty. In the future, you'll definitely suffer the wrath of the heavens. Xikong Gaoming looked at Mu Tianhe viciously and said, Then I'll fulfill your wish. Kill him for me. Behind him, LV Shiexan had already charged at Mu Tianhe like a ghost. Mu Tianhe looked at death calmly as the aura of death enveloped his body. However, he suddenly thought of his grandson that he had never met before, that Mu Yu. If Mu Yu saw that he had once again killed Mu Hao because of his dignity, would he forgive him? He knew that he didn't have the face to beg for Mu Yu's forgiveness, but he could set an example in front of Mu Hao. He wasn't LV Shiexan's opponent, but he still condensed a powerful spiritual energy in his body and wanted to fight to the death with him. A powerful killing intent instantly enveloped Mu Tianhe's body. Mu Tianhe even felt that his breathing had slowed down. You dare to touch my people? An angry and cold voice filled the entire Mu family's courtyard, causing Mu Tianhe to be startled. LV Shiexan and Go Zhanyang had already flown out. The two of them fiercely collided with each other in the air, creating a heavy muffled sound. Then, like two dead dogs, they fell to the ground and didn't move anymore. A person covered in runes slowly appeared in front of Mu Tianhe. At this moment, Mu Hao had already landed on the ground. Xikong Gaoming was actually suspended in the air by an invisible hand. Mr. Yen, Mu Tianhe cried out in surprise. However, he quickly realized that something was wrong because Mr. Yan's appearance was very strange. Within the runes, there seemed to be another person being held by Mr. Yan. Brother Hao, grandfather, father, eldest uncle, second uncle, are you all right? What shocked the Mu family was that Mu Xian ran out of Mr. Yan's runes and rushed towards the nearest Mu Hao. The runes around Mu Yu's body gradually dissipated, revealing his original appearance. Feng Mu Tianhe was stunned. He never thought that Mr. Yan was actually that easygoing Feng Mu who had saved Mu Hao several times. But what's going on? How could Feng Mu be Mr. Yan? Who are you? You actually dare to meddle in our Xikong family's business. Xikong Gaoming was both shocked and angry. At this moment, he was suspended in the air like a sandbag. He had never been humiliated like this before. Ever since his son became an extreme immortal that everyone revered, his status rose. No one dared to be disrespectful to him. However, such a young man actually dared to capture him without the slightest scruple. Mu Yu didn't even bother to look at Xikong Gaoming. He casually threw Xikong Gaoming to the ground like he was throwing trash. Following a muffled sound, Xikong Gaoming fell heavily on the stone floor. This kind of terrifying force was enough to create a large hole in the ground. However, a rune appeared on the ground and protected the stone floor, but all the force was used on Xikong Gaoming. How could Mu Yu let this kind of person destroy his courtyard? You dare to trespass into my house. Mu Yu swept his gaze over the injured Mu, Tianhe, and the others. He was unable to restrain his anger. You even injured my people? Is that Mr. Yen? Xikong Gaoming was shocked. He always thought that Mr. Yen was just a fabrication by Mu Tianhe. He didn't expect that he actually existed. Moreover, this Mr. Yan's cultivation was actually so high that even his two out-of-body guards couldn't stop him. You dare to humiliate my people? Muyu stomped heavily on Sikong Gaoming's chest, breaking his ribs. You? Sikong Gaoming spat out a mouthful of blood. You dare to treat me like this? Don't you know my son? Slap! Muyu raised his hand and slapped, directly shattering all of Sikong Gaoming's teeth. Muyu turned to look at Mu Tianhe's miserable state. Anger had already filled his chest. For the moment, Mu Tianhe chose to put down his pride. This old man was his grandfather. He definitely wouldn't forgive anyone who dared to bully his grandfather. So what if your son is Sikong Chiwen? Muyu looked coldly at Sikong Gaoming. He suddenly understood that whether it was Mr. Yin or Feng Mu, his reputation wasn't big enough to intimidate others. There would still be many people who would harm the Mu clan. Once he wasn't around, today's incident would most likely happen again. He needed a reputation to protect the Mu family, just like how the name Sikong Chuan could make people not dare to touch the Sikong family. The name Mu Yu definitely had enough weight to prevent the Mu clan from being humiliated. Now that he had admitted that Mu Tianhe was his grandfather, there was nothing for him to hide. Mr. Yin, hurry up and let go of my master. My master, Sikong Chiwen, will be back soon. Don't be ungrateful. Go Zhengyang crawled up from the ground and said fearfully. Mu Yu's cultivation was above his. He was afraid that other than Sikong Chiwen, no one else in Clearwater City could stop Mr. Yin. Sikong Chiwen will be back soon? That's good. Go and tell him that if he wants to save his father, he can come and find me, Mu Yu said coldly. Mu Yu couldn't kill Sikong Gaoming directly. He still didn't know what Sikong Chiwen was like. If he killed Sikong Gaoming and Sikong Chiwen decided to take revenge on the Mu clan, he wouldn't be able to stop him. Now that he had a family, he had to take care of their safety. Everyone looked at Mu Yu with surprise. However, Mu Tianhe was very worried about one thing. Since Mr. Yin knew that Sikong Gaoming's son was Sikong Chiwen, then with Sikong Chiwen's ability, would Mr. Yin be a match for Sikong Chiwen? If Mr. Yin wasn't a match for Sikong Chiwen, then wouldn't the Mu clan be wiped out? Mr. Yin, please let this person go. Sikong Chiwen. Mu Tianhe took a step forward and said respectfully, My name isn't Mr. Yin. Mu Yu looked at his grandfather. Although he didn't have any feelings for Mu Tianhe, this old man had won his respect. It was time for him to clarify things with Mu Tianhe. Yes. Lord Feng Mu, this old servant didn't know that Mr. Yin was Lord Feng Mu. I was blind and offended you. Please forgive me. Mu Tianhe hurriedly said. He had ordered Mr. Yin to leave when he came. My name is Mu Yu, Mu Yu said slowly. My name is Mu Yu. What? Chapter 513. My name is Mu Yu. When these 4 words came out of the young man's mouth, the air seemed to have solidified. No one could breathe. The Mu family members were all stunned. Everyone thought that they had misheard. The mysterious Mr. Yin was not only the familiar Feng Mu, but also Mu Yu. You are Mu Yu? Mu Tianhe's face was filled with disbelief. His face was even paler than before. Mu Yu was the true God's disciple. He might even be his grandson. However, Mu Tianhe did not dare to say it out loud. He remembered that he was the one who caused Mu Yu to wander outside. He had always felt deeply guilty about this. If the young man in front of him was really his grandson, how should he face all of this? When Mu Tianhe heard the 2 words Mu Yu, he was not ecstatic. Instead, he was afraid. He remembered what had happened recently. The young man in front of him had always helped the other members of the Mu family. He saved Mu Rongshuan's family with the identity of Feng Mu. He also crippled the Mu family's evil slave, surnamed Yi, and protected Mu Hao. He even used the identity of Mr. Yin to obtain the Mu family's ancestral home. Mu Tianhe's stomach twisted into a ball. The young man in front of him had done so much for the Mu clan, but he was the only one who was allowed to start as a servant. Was this Mu Yu's revenge? Mu Tianhe was at a loss. He was panicking. He was even more panicked than when he was facing Sikong Gaoming. Big brother Feng Mu. Mu Xin felt strange. She turned her head and blinked her big eyes. Did you just say that your name is Mu Yu? Do you have the same name as the true God's disciple? Muyu looked at everyone in the Mu family and found that everyone was staring at him, waiting for his answer. They also wanted to know if the young man in front of them was the true God's disciple. They also wanted to know if the true God's disciple was a member of the Mu family. However, Mu Tian's gaze was avoiding Muyu's. He kept his head down, not daring to look at Muyu. Muyu Rongshuan was also slightly trembling. He hoped that Feng Mu would admit that he was Muyu, but he also felt that it was inconceivable. The person he met in the desert was actually the legendary Muyu. All of this was too inconceivable. Muyu pondered for a long time, then calmly said, "I am the disciple of the true God, also called Muyu." "That's right. Of course, Mr. Feng Mu and Mr. Yin are just my aliases." Mu Rongshuan was pleasantly surprised, but this was not the answer he wanted. He wanted to know if Muyu was related to the He Mu family. However, Muyu didn't immediately answer him. Instead, he looked at Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin. These two were of no importance to him, but he had to make an example of Sikong Chiwen. He raised his hand, and following an unpleasant cracking sound and heart-wrenching groan, Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin's arms were severely twisted. At the same time, a rune covered their bodies, directly crippling their cultivation. You dare!" Go Zhengyang and Lu Shixin looked at Muyu with hatred, but Muyu only coldly stared at them. His eyes flashed with black and white runes, and a terrifying aura pressed down on them, forcibly suppressing their words. "Go back and tell Sikong Chiwen that I'll wait for him here. If he doesn't come tomorrow, I'll kill Sikong Gaoming." Muyu snorted and waved his hand again, throwing the two of them out of the Mu manor. As for Sikong Gaoming, he had already been slapped unconscious by Muyu. His body was in a sorry state, dripping with blood. This was already Muyu being merciful. Otherwise, with his cultivation, Sikong Gaoming would never be able to stand up again. As for this half-dead Sikong Gaoming, one of you can throw him into the woodshed and lock him up. Muyu kicked Sikong Gaoming's body, and Sikong Gaoming's entire body was kicked to the corner of the wall. Mu Hao suddenly said, "Are you really the true God's disciple, Muyu?" "What? Is there someone else pretending to be him?" Muyu looked at this silly guy. He felt that this silly guy had become a different person in the past few days. He had become very different. Muyu knew that the matter of the Gu family breaking off the engagement had a huge impact on Mu Hao. If it was anyone else in that situation, they would be deeply affected. However, Mu Hao was not defeated. Instead, he had become more mature. "Then are you from our Mu family?" Mu Hao asked again. Everyone stared at Muyu, waiting for Muyu's answer. This answer was too important to them because it meant that the Mu family's future could be saved. Only Mu Tianhe lowered his head. He did not look at Muyu. He did not dare to face this person. Muyu looked at Mu Tianhe and slowly said, "I am." The eyes of everyone from the Mu family lit up. However, only Mu Tianhe was trembling. The moment Muyu admitted it, he did not feel any excitement, only shame. It was he who insisted on separating Mu Zhexing and Zhu Xiaoqi, causing Muyu to be separated from his parents at a young age. Now, the Mu family only existed in name. He did not expect that the person who pulled them back from the brink of death was this abandoned grandson. Mu Tianhe did not have the face to look at this grandson in name. He even felt ashamed. "Are you really Muyu from our Mu family?" Mu Hao was shocked. He recalled the first time he met Muyu in the desert. He suspected that this person named Feng Mu had bad intentions, but he kept on praising his ideal Muyu in front of Feng Mu. Then, when the marriage was canceled, Muyu used Feng Mu's identity to tell him not to rely on this so-called outsider. He chose not to blindly believe in the disciple of a true God and instead thanked the mysterious Mr. Yin. Who would have thought that Mr. Yin was actually Muyu himself? "Feng Mu, Mr. Yin, Muyu, it's all you." Mu Hao found it hard to accept. He recalled how he had been belittling Feng Mu and praising Muyu in front of this person. He had even spoken so passionately. Little did he know that this person had been watching him make a fool of himself. Mu Hao felt that he was a fool, so naive that it was somewhat cute. Yes, what's wrong with that? Muyu snorted. He knew that this guy would be greatly affected. He had always been belittled and doubted by this hothead. Now that he knew that Feng Mu was actually Mu Yu, it would be strange if he could accept it. Of course it's not right. Since you're a member of our Mu clan, why did you stand by and watch as our Mu clan is being bullied? Mu Hao suddenly roared out in anger. He didn't know where it came from. Little Hao, shut up. Mu Tianhe angrily rebuked. His face was very red. He knew that Mu Yu had no reason to help the Mu family. This family didn't have Mu Yu's mark. Mu Yu wasn't even born here. Mu Yu pursed his lips. Mu Hao's questioning tone made him feel irritated. He stared at Mu Hao and slowly said, "Why should I help you?" Because Mu Hao's chest heaved up and down. Because you're a member of our Mu family. Am I a member of the Mu family? I was an orphan since I was young. I didn't have parents like you. You can act spoiled in your parents' arms, but I can't. I can't even remember what my mother looked like, and I don't even know who my father is. When I was in dire straits, did the Mu family help me? When a Mu family was in dire straits, why should I help you? Mu Yu swept his gaze over all the members of the Mu family. His gaze especially fell on Mu Tianhe. Mu Tianhe clenched his fists. Mu Rongxuan and the others didn't dare to look at Mu Yu because they knew that Mu Yu had no relationship with the Mu family. He was even almost killed by the Mu family. At this time, no one in the Mu family dared to say anything about Mu Yu because they weren't worthy. The more Mu Yu thought about it, the angrier he became. He was reminded of his childhood memories by Mu Hao's questioning tone. When he was young, he sat alone on the broken doorstep of his home in Flowing Water Village. He looked at the small road at the entrance of the village, anxiously waiting for his parents to come pick him up. He thought that if he continued to wait, there would be a result. Every time a stranger came to the village, he would eagerly look forward to it. He would look forward to the strangers saying that they were looking for a child called Mu Yu. At that time, he would happily jump into his parents' arms. He waited from the age of 2 until he was 12. Even when Grandpa Village Chief told him that he could become an immortal master, he was unwilling, because he was afraid that the wrong person would come to find his parents. But no one came to find him. No one came. He grew up like a wild child. He could only envy other children who could be held in their parents' arms. He couldn't. He had no parents. There was only a straw hut, and only the village chief was raising him. He was very optimistic during the day because he didn't want the village chief to worry. But when he was alone at night, he would secretly cry. He kept asking why. Why did his parents abandon him? What did he do wrong? And now that he found his family, he was suddenly questioned by them. As a member of the Mu family, why did you stand by and do nothing? Stand by and do nothing? You said I stood by and did nothing? Then I'll tell you. That time in the desert, I saved all of you. That time in the restaurant, I saved you. I helped you protect the Mu family's house. When you lived in the cemetery, there were so many people who came to collect debts every day. I helped you settle it. I saved your father at least 5 times. You owed $2 million, and there were people who came to collect debts every day. I helped you pay it back. When you lived in the cemetery, I asked you to move back. When you were bullied by Sikong Gaoming, I helped you deal with it. I stood by and did nothing. Tell me, what do you mean by standing by and doing nothing? Mu Yu said angrily. A terrifying aura instantly engulfed the entire courtyard. All the flowers and plants grew crazily and swayed in the air, staring at the Mu family. He didn't know why he was angry. He only felt that he was very sullen. It was the Mu family who had wronged him, but in Mu Hao's eyes, it was as if he had caused the Mu family's destruction. He had done so much in secret because the Mu family had given him life. He wanted to return this favor and didn't want to be unable to cross the hurdle in his heart. He had already done everything he could. He didn't want to reveal his identity and didn't want to have anything to do with the Mu family. In the end, he found that the Mu family had no way to escape Sikong Gaoming's persecution. He had no choice but to use the name of the true God's disciple to intimidate others and protect the Mu family. He admitted his identity, but he was questioned by Mu Hao. A child's words carried no harm. He understood this logic. He shouldn't care about a child's words, but he was also a human. He had emotions and burdens. Who could he tell the resentment that he had accumulated for so long? He couldn't accept that standing by and doing nothing Chapter 514. Mu Hao opened his mouth. He did not know that all these things were done by Mu Yu. He suddenly realized that he was very childish and was even at a loss. Mu Yu, who he said was watching with folded arms, had actually done so much for their Mu family. I'm sorry, I didn't know. Mu Hao knew that he had said the wrong thing and was also frightened by Mu Yu's anger. No one from the Mu family dared to say anything. In Mu Rongshuan's impression, Feng Mu had always been a very easygoing person, a little childish, but no one thought that Mu Yu would suddenly become so angry. Master Mu Yu, it's this old servant's fault. This old servant did not discipline him well. This old servant is willing to be punished. Mu Tianhe wanted to kneel down, but Mu Yu still stopped him. Mu Tianhe's old servant made everyone from the Mu family understand that the Mu Yu in front of them was not someone they could climb up to. Mu Rongshuan and the others' faces were also hot. They found themselves very laughable. The Mu family had hurt a person, but they wanted this person to save the Mu family. It was really funny. It was only today that they found out that Mu Yu had always been an orphan. As an orphan, he had made a name for himself, and all of this had nothing to do with their Mu family. Mu Yu took a deep breath after spitting out some of the words in his heart. He felt a lot better. I want to be alone. You guys lock up Sikong Gaoming for me. Mu Yu slowly walked towards a courtyard. That was where he stayed on his first day in the Mu family. Master Mu Yu, the room this old servant has prepared for you is here. Mu Tianhe said hesitantly. No need. At night, the stars twinkled and a cool breeze blew. Mu Yu sat on a chair in the courtyard, drinking wine alone. Little Shuai and Long Tongue were jumping around the tree in the courtyard. They had nothing to do, so they liked to fight with each other. Mu Yu looked at the two of them and felt that being a lazy dragon and a narcissist who only liked to look for food was a very good thing. At least he wouldn't have so many unnecessary worries. He realized that he had actually fallen in love with the taste of wine. As the spicy liquid flowed down his throat, his entire body felt numb, as if nothing was worth mentioning. His heart gradually calmed down, and the events of the day did not seem so bad. Mu Hao stood outside the door for a long time. He wanted to knock on the door several times, but his hand always stopped in midair. Mu Hao was very afraid. He had always wanted to be an adult to share the burden of his family, but the things he said and did were always so childish. He even took things for granted. He knew that he still had a long way to go to become the pillar of the Mu clan. Mu Yu had long since Mu Hao outside the door. He understood that this hothead wanted to apologize to him, but was unable to muster up the courage to do so. After all, Mu Yu had always bragged about his great big brother Mu Yu in front of Mu Yu while constantly belittling Feng Mu in front of him. However, when he found out that Feng Mu was Mu Yu, he found it hard to accept this fact. Mu Yu shook his head slightly. In the end, he was only a 13-year-old child. How could he know so much? A child who grew up in a greenhouse would not understand that life was not as simple as he thought. Mu Yu wasn't angry with Mu Hao, and he wasn't angry with anyone. During the day, he was angry only because the words "watch with folded arms" touched his scar, and he wanted to vent the emotions in his heart. After venting, he would feel much more relaxed. Mu Tianhe walked out of the darkness and put his hand on Mu Hao's shoulder. Mu Hao looked up and saw Mu Tianhe's haggard appearance. He felt sad. "Grandfather, I'm sorry. It's all my fault." Mu Tianhe sighed. "You go back first. I know you want to apologize to him, but this matter was caused by me. I don't blame you." "Grandfather." Mu Hao wanted to say something, but stopped. "Go back," Mu Tianhe said with a face full of vicissitudes. Mu Hao clenched his fists and looked at the closed door. He slowly turned around and left. Mu Tianhe took a deep breath and knocked on the door of the courtyard. "Master Mu Yu, may I come in?" Mu Yu waved his hand, and the door of the courtyard opened automatically. Mu Tianhe staggered over and stood in front of Mu Yu with an awkward expression, seeming to be uneasy. "Master Mu Yu, this is the account book for your 5 million spirit stones. Please take a look." Mu Tianhe bent over and handed the account book to Mu Yu. As for where he had spent the 5 million spirit stones that Mu Yu had given him, he clearly remembered every single one of them. Mu Tianhe looked at Mu Yu, who was drinking alone, and his face was full of guilt. He did not dare to speak loudly in front of his grandson and could only call him master. This was a very sad thing. Mu Yu also looked at Mu Tianhe. This old man had separated Mu Yu's parents due to his conceit when he was young, resulting in Mu Yu becoming an orphan. Mu Yu should have hated him, but Mu Yu had forgiven him the moment Mu Tianhe gave up his face. This old man had done everything to protect his family. Compared to the fallen planet Jupiter, this old man was more worthy of respect. Mu Tianhe had only made one mistake in his life. After planet Jupiter had fallen, he had wanted to redeem himself, but Zhu Qiuqi's death had caused things to go beyond his control. "Call me Mu Yu." Mu Yu was silent for a moment. He took the account book and placed it on the table. "Sit, master. I'll just stand," Mu Tianhe said uneasily. "Sit." Mu Yu drank another cup of wine and repeated. Mu Tianhe hesitated for a moment before sitting down. He secretly sized up this grandson whom he had caused to become an orphan. He was so unfamiliar, so much so that he had used a special method to pull the Mu family back from the brink of destruction. Mu Tianhe knew that Mu Yu had done so because he could not let go. His grandson was the disciple of a true god, and his cultivation was unfathomable. As his grandfather, he should feel proud. However, he did not dare to have such thoughts because his grandson's achievements had nothing to do with him. The two unfamiliar grandfather-grandson pair remained silent for a long time. That was because they did not know what to say. After an unknown period of time, Mu Tianhe did not move, and Mu Yu only drank wine. There was so much wine in the bottle that it seemed like it would never be finished. The wine was indeed endless, because Mu Yu had set up a spatial formation on the bottle and filled it with countless bottles of wine. Finally, Mu Tianhe broke the silence and said with a sigh, "I'm sorry." This was a belated apology, a full 20 years late. This apology dispersed some of the emotions in Mu Yu's heart. He knew that his grandfather's sorry was sincere. "Old servant." "You don't need to call me old servant in front of me. It sounds very awkward," Mu Yu said softly. Mu Tianhe pursed his lips. He did not understand what Mu Yu thought of him. Was it resentment or something else? He did not dare to hope that Mu Yu would forgive him because he had caused too much harm to Mu Yu. However, Mu Yu had chosen to help the Mu family. "Was it you who told Mu Hao that he would rather die standing than live kneeling?" Mu Yu suddenly asked. Mu Tianhe was startled. He did not understand why Mu Yu would suddenly ask this. He suddenly remembered that 20 years ago, Mu Tianhe had chosen to separate Mu Zhexing and Zhu Qiuqi because of face. When Mu Yu had appeared as Mr. Yin, he had told Mu Tianhe to put down his face. Today, however, he had chosen to let Mu Hao die for the sake of his backbone and dignity. This was undoubtedly a laughable matter of face. Mu Tianhe was somewhat flustered. "I'm sorry, I shouldn't have taught Mu Hao those things. I'm not a good grandfather. I still value face too much. I should have asked Sikong Gaoming." Mu Yu shook his head. "You misunderstand. Face and dignity are not the same. When you separated my parents, it was a matter of face. That was a kind of indescribable vanity. You wanted everyone in the Mu family to live in your way. You refused to put down your face and be a steward for others because of your vanity. Dignity is something that all of us need to uphold. It has nothing to do with vanity. It's a principle that cannot be lost." Mu Tianhe's face turned red. For a moment, he really did want to throw away his dignity and beg Sikong Gaoming for mercy, asking him to let everyone in the Mu family go. At that time, he thought that he was doing the right thing. Letting the Mu family live was the best choice. In short, to Mu Hao, you are a very good grandfather. The sons you taught all have a courage that is not afraid of death. Today, you kneeled in front of Sikong Gaoming, which means that you're no longer only thinking about your own face, but also your family. You didn't kneel, which means that you are a person with a backbone. Whether or not you kneeled in front of Sikong Gaoming, you are still someone worthy of my respect. Mu Yu slowly said. Mu Tianhe found that Mu Yu had seen through this matter so thoroughly. At that moment, he really didn't know what to do. He wanted to protect his family, but he also wanted to maintain his dignity. In the end, it was Mu Hao's courage that made him choose dignity. He thought that Mu Yu would angrily scold him for not caring about Mu Hao's life, just like how he didn't care about Mu Yu's life in the past. However, Mu Yu didn't. Mu Tianhe couldn't see through this strange grandson. After a while, Mu Tianhe laughed at himself and said, "I know you hate me. It is only right that you hate me. I did wrong back then, but I didn't find an excuse for myself. If you hate me and want me to pay the price, then I only have one life left. If my death can make you feel better, then I will end my own life right now. I am willing to atone for my mistakes." Mu Tianhe lowered his head like a pitiful old man willing to use his life to make up for his past mistakes. He separated Mu Zhexing and Zhu Qiuqi for the sake of the Mu clan. Now, he was willing to die to repay his grandson for the sake of the Mu clan. Mu Tianhe took out a dagger that was incomparably cold under the moonlight. He placed the dagger on the table and revealed a weak smile. "If you hate me and don't want me to live, then I won't live." Mu Yu picked up the dagger and gently flicked it. It issued a crisp sound that echoed in the courtyard. Mu Tianhe looked at Mu Yu and said, "If you don't want to do it, then I will do it myself. I know my death won't change anything, but at least it will allow you to vent the resentment in your heart." However, the dagger in Mu Yu's hand shattered into powder and dissipated with the wind. "Why do you think I hate you? Do I have to hate you?" Mu Yu retorted. You don't hate me?" Mu Tianhe was startled. "I separated your parents and left you homeless, right?" Mu Yu smiled and shook his head. "I have too many people to hate. I don't want to hate a few more." He hated that time had ascended to the heavens, hated that the heavens were not waiting for him, and hated the guardian of the three-layered palace. Everyone he hated was a powerful opponent. He had so many people to hate, but he didn't understand why he would hate someone who had never truly harmed him. "I'm not homeless. I have my own master, my own senior and junior brothers, my own Deadwood daddy, the people I like and the people who like me, and a few sincere friends. You made me an orphan, but you also gave me the life I like. I'm already very satisfied, so why would I want to live another life that doesn't exist?" Mu Yu poured himself a cup of wine and downed it in one gulp. Perhaps when Mu Yu was in the Mu family, he would have grown up with all kinds of adoration. He would have lived a life of luxury and lived a carefree life. However, this also meant that his current life had been reduced to nothing. He wouldn't be able to meet Tian Ran and Xiao Shui, who liked him. He wouldn't be able to meet Deadwood Daddy, who scolded and cared for him. He wouldn't be able to meet his master, who taught him sword techniques. He wouldn't be able to meet the confused Xiao Shui and the honest Long Tongue. And he wouldn't be able to meet Grandpa Village Chief, who liked to deify him. Although there were regrets in his life, he wasn't willing to let the people he had met disappear. He might meet better people in another life, but it might also be worse. There were many things and people that Mu Yu didn't like to use, maybe, to replace. He cherished what he had now, so he didn't want to live an illusory, maybe kind of life. There were no maybe in life. "Thank you for forgiving me." Mu Tianhe nodded gratefully. He understood what Mu Yu meant. Mu Yu liked his current life and didn't want it to change. Many people would choose to make a scene if they encountered such a situation. They would choose to throw all kinds of tantrums, criticize, and ridicule. However, Mu Yu didn't do that. After being angered by Mu Hao's words, he still chose to forgive the Mu family. "I'm sorry, I'm really sorry." Mu Tianhe stood up and staggered around. "In the future, the entire Mu family will be yours. We will do whatever you want us to do. I'll take my leave. You don't have to apologize to me. You don't owe me anything." Mu Yu paused before continuing. "Really, I don't blame you anymore, Grandpa." Mu Tianhe's body froze in place. What did you just call me?" Mu Tianhe suddenly turned around and looked at Mu Yu with trembling eyes, thinking that he had misheard. Although those two words are just a form of address, it had an extraordinary meaning to Mu Tianhe. "I will help the Mu family, Grandpa." Mu Yu smiled and poured himself another cup of wine. Chapter 515. In the Mu clan's courtyard, no one spoke. They were nervously waiting for Sikong Chiwen to come to their door. Everyone's nerves were stretched taut. Sikong Chiwen's cultivation was too strong, causing the Mu clan to be on edge. However, the only young man who could help the Mu clan was leisurely sitting on a rock and playing with Mu Xian. Mu Xian didn't know what happened. She only knew that big brother Feng Mu was her big brother Mu Yu. She was very happy. Mu Hao was far away from Mu Yu, but his eyes didn't leave Mu Yu. Although Mu Qianhe told him that Mu Yu didn't blame him, he still didn't dare to go over. And Mu Yu was too lazy to pay attention to this hothead. Don't touch these swallows. Otherwise, you won't be able to hear. Mu Yu said to Mu Xian. Ripples were constantly rippling in the surroundings. Many blue swallows were soaring in the surroundings, making crisp and clear sounds. This was his formation technique, swallow's sea sound. It was specially used to make the enemy deaf. Big brother Mu Yu, what else can you do? Can you do butterflies? Mu Xian excitedly looked at the swallows and bounced around. Mu Yu faintly smiled. Countless white formation runes surged. Huge butterflies flapped their wings and circled around Mu Xian. Mu Xian happily ran around the courtyard, wanting to catch these butterflies. These butterflies were an illusion formation formed by his spirit energy. They didn't have any lethality. Mu Hao curiously stared at the swallows and butterflies. He had never seen a cultivator who could use spirit energy like this before. Do you only know these little tricks? Mu Hao couldn't help but ask. As soon as Mu Hao's voice fell, a huge black bear suddenly fell from the sky and pounced towards Mu Hao. Little Hao! Mu Rongshuan cried out in alarm. No one knew where this black bear came from, and they even wanted to take action to subdue it. But the black bear was too fast. In the blink of an eye, Mu Hao was pushed down. Mu Hao strangely screamed and held his head. But the black bear directly picked him up and roared at him. Finally, it used its nose to rub Mu Hao's face. You tricked me, Mu Hao said to Mu Yu in shock. I know magic. Mu Yu shrugged. If you're so scared of magic, what else do you want to learn? Mu Rongshuan and the others heaved a sigh of relief when they realized that it was just a prank by Mu Yu. Mu Qianhe exclaimed in surprise. I never knew you were an array formation master. Yes, I learned a little bit, Mu Yu said casually. The sect leader of the formation glyph sect actually said that he had only learned a little bit. Everyone else would be ashamed to death. However, array masters were not very valued in the cultivation world. Everyone knew their weakness. As long as they could withstand one round of attacks, they would be powerless to continue. Their role was mostly in setting up all kinds of wonderful protective formations, which was something that everyone knew. But how could the sect leader of the formation glyph sect have such a weakness? Isn't it said that array formation masters generally can't compare to ordinary cultivators? Mu Hao struggled to get out of Black Bear's embrace, but Black Bear held him firmly. How should I put it? In any case, no matter how bad it is, it's still better than you. Mu Yu said bluntly. I'm just a child. What's there to compare with me? Mu Hao said unconvinced. Didn't you say that you're already an adult? Mu Yu purposely said. Mu Hao's face flushed red. He snorted and didn't say anything. Mu Yu snapped his fingers and Black Bear turned into runes and disappeared. Mu Hao fell to the ground on his butt. He cursed as he got up and muttered, You must be a fake Mu Yu. The real Mu, you wouldn't treat me like this. The Mu Yu you worship is here right now. How different do you think I am from the Mu Yu in your imagination? Mu Yu asked. Mu Hao muttered softly. The Mu Yu in my imagination is powerful and domineering, hates evil, upholds justice, is valiant, elegant, and has a strong sense of justice. I have all of these. Mu Yu tidied his collar and tried his best to make himself look like that. You don't have any, Mu Hao replied softly. Mu Yu closed her eyes and took a deep breath. She stroked her chest with her hand and resisted the urge to slap this bastard to death. She smiled and said, You're really asking for spanking, aren't you? Very good. I'm a magnanimous person and won't lower myself to your level. Mu Qianhe discovered that this grandson he had never met before was a very childish person. He was also a little surprised. He always thought that a true God disciple would be a cold and aloof young man. He didn't expect him to be so easy to get along with. Not only him, the others also let out a sigh of relief when they saw Mu Yu being so easygoing. Mu Yu didn't blame the Mu family and was even willing to help them. For everyone, this was already the best result. However, at this moment, a heavy aura suddenly enveloped the entire Mu family courtyard, causing everyone to feel as if a large stone was pressing down on their hearts. Everyone was extremely shocked. They already understood that Sikong Chiwen had most likely come to find them. The terrifying pressure became stronger and stronger. Cold sweat had already covered the foreheads of all the Mu family members. Mu Xian even directly hugged Mu Yu. However, ripples suddenly appeared around them and merged into everyone's bodies. The sudden pressure instantly disappeared. Everyone looked at each other in bewilderment, and then understood that Mu Yu had resolved the pressure. A gentle breeze blew past, and a young man stood in the Mu family courtyard. This young man wore a blue robe, and his face was a little pale. However, just by standing there, he gave off the feeling of a violent storm. Mu Tianhe calmed himself down. The last time he saw Sikong Chiwen, he almost couldn't stand properly. However, this time, with Mu Yu here, he felt as if he was hiding in a house, and all the violent storms were blocked outside. I never knew that a true God's disciple was an array master. Sikong Chiwen looked at Mu Yu indifferently. Mu Yu was still sitting on the stone, without moving. When Mu Xian saw Sikong Chiwen, a trace of panic appeared on her face. Clearly, she had a deep shadow of Sikong Chiwen. She buried her head in Mu Yu's chest. There are many things you don't know. Mu Yu said indifferently. Where's my father? Sikong Chiwen asked coldly. Mu Yu waved his hand and dragged the battered Sikong Chiwen out of the house. Sikong Chiwen caught him. Are you the one who beat my father like this? Sikong Chiwen frowned. He carefully checked his father's injuries. They were very serious and would take a long time to recover. He bullied my family. I'm lucky that I didn't kill him. Mu Yu's cultivation was only in the 9th layer of out-of-body realm, but he wasn't afraid of Sikong Chiwen, who was in the spirit-severing realm. Sikong Chiwen gave him a strong feeling, but he wasn't invincible. Chiwen, kill him for father. Sikong Gaoming's teeth were knocked out. When he spoke, his mouth was full of air. Sikong Chiwen ignored his father. He couldn't see through this person who was younger than him. You're from the Mu family? Yes. Next time I see my family being bullied, it won't be as simple as knocking out a few teeth. Mu Yu glanced at his family and said firmly. Sikong Chiwen's expression was very calm. You're not simple. You're only an out-of-body realm, but you make me feel threatened. Sikong Chiwen's words shocked Mu Tianhe. He glanced at Mu Yu again. Sikong Chiwen was in the spirit-severing realm, but he was afraid of out-of-body realm Mu Yu. Was his grandson really that powerful? Mu Yu wasn't the same as before. He had powerful formations and swordsmanship. It was hard to say who would win if they fought. Even if Sikong Chiwen could suppress Mu Yu with his cultivation, he would have to pay a price to win. Mu Yu was very confident about this. Do you want to fight with me now? Mu Yu wasn't afraid. Tian Busui, who was ranked higher than Sikong Chiwen, was his enemy. If he didn't even have the ability to defeat Sikong Chiwen, how could he deal with Tian Busui? Not now, but on the 6th of June. I'll fight with you after I defeat Tian Busui. A purple light flashed across Sikong Chiwen's eyes. By then, many people from the cultivation world will come to Clearwater City. Wouldn't it be better if I defeat both of you in front of everyone? Sikong Chiwen's tone was very arrogant. In his eyes, Tian Busui wasn't his opponent at all. As for Mu Yu, he was just famous. You're so confident that you can defeat Tian Busui? Even if you defeat Tian Busui, do you think you still have the energy to fight with me? Mu Yu sneered. Your ranking is too low. I'm enough to deal with both of you. Sikong Chiwen's arrogance was obvious. He glanced at Mu Tianhe and the rest, and said, As for the rest of the Mu family, they might be able to live until the 7th of June. Mu Tianhe's expression changed. He was furious, but he couldn't answer Sikong Chiwen. If Mu Yu lost, the Mu family wouldn't be able to survive in Sikong Chiwen's hands. I think the Mu family will live to 100 years old. Mu Yu's eyes flashed with black and white light. His aura wasn't inferior to Sikong Chiwen's. The destruction of the Mu family is inevitable. My father wants the Mu family to be destroyed. Sikong Chiwen said faintly. A gust of wind blew, and Sikong Chiwen disappeared with his father. Sikong Chiwen was a dark horse. He didn't want to attack Mu Yu today, because Clearwater City was too remote. Even if he defeated Muyu now, only the Mu family would know. News of his battle with Tian Busui had already spread throughout the cultivation world. By then, many people would come to Clearwater City to watch the battle between the two of them. By then, if he defeated Tian Busui and the true God's disciple, he would be famous. If Sikong Chuan wanted to attack Muyu, it wouldn't take too long. Muyu, I think the Mu family should leave Clearwater City as a group. Mu Tiana said worriedly. Don't worry, grandfather. With me around, nothing will happen to the Mu family. Muyu smiled. He wouldn't run away from anything. His real target was Tian Busui. But I'm worried that you'll be alone. He's not alone. Mu Zhixing walked in slowly from the door. His expression was somewhat tired, but incomparably resolute. You're tuning into the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.